Welcome to the best damn comic book YouTube program, podcast, whatever you want to call it. The Comics Aficionados are back here at Saturday to talk about comic books, comic book movies, all the fun stuff this week. Got a great panel. We're going to be talking about the DC Comics leadership. Are they out of touch with their readers? We've also got Suicide Squad. Lots of stuff going on that front. We got the Ayer Cut. We've got the real movie from James Gunn. We've also got a Get Joker coming out. We got Spider-Man 60th anniversary. A wide gamut of topics to hit. First up, we do have a friend of the channel, comic book artist. I want to share this before we introduce you here, Eric. Let's see if I can bring this bad boy up. But you might want to talk about this. Let's hit it. So we're almost a week out for Arc Athena.
Is it a week? No, it's September.
Almost. It's 8 days. It's the 7th.
It's still August, no?
It's August, dude.
Oh, I read it the wrong way.
Wes.
I was like, wow.
Wes, stay in this month with me. You gave me heart palpitations when you said it was a week out.
Oh, my bad.
You're scaring the
It's coming up
Jesus
next month. I've got to change. I've got to change the thing. It says, well, I'll change it. But it's coming up soon. A little over a month.
It is soon. It is soon. Not as heart-attackingly soon as you just mentioned it to be, but yeah, it's soon. We're doing everything that we can to get ready for it on this end, all the pre-production stuff. So if, by the way, thank you so much for opening the show with that. Arc Athena is my creator-owned project. It's 6 issues long that I'm going to be crowdfunding starting on September 15th. And yeah, so it's going to be that much more, I'm going to be that much more obnoxious about making people aware that it's coming the closer we get to that date. Ahead of time.
Be on the mailing list. Where do they get?
They are. And if they're not already, please go sign up now. You can go to ericcanete.com/arc-athena-info. You'll be able to find the sign up there. What else is there? Yeah, and every month, I mean, this is to incentivize your sign up. At the end of each month, we're going to be giving away a 8-inch prototype bust to those people who sign up, chosen randomly until launch day.
Very nice. Well, thank you for joining us and bringing a little cachet from the industry to us.
Yeah, one more thing. I want to thank Joe ahead of time because I put the work in progress pages in front of Joe and say, tell me if this is poor. And Joe went in there and said, yeah, it could use a little tightening up. So thank you very much.
Well,
I appreciate it.
No problem. I was happy to do it.
Also with us, as Eric just mentioned, we do have award-winning editor, comic book writer Joe Corallo. How you doing, Joe?
I'm all right, Wes. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad that you could make it today.
Yes.
I know you could be shopping for comic books, but you put it off a day just so you could talk with us.
I sure did. And that's fine. I mean, a lot of them will still be there. People don't really buy comics. So if they're not there if I'm not there on Saturday, they'll be there on Sunday.
And if you're looking for ericcanete.com, if you forgot it, there is a link in the video description for everybody. So if you want to go sign up there, that's there as well. Who else we got? We've also got Josh McDonald here. Josh, you have a new website of your own. Where can people find your new articles?
It's going to be popbyculture.com. I had an experience of how much of an amateur I am recently with technical things when scheduled posts didn't post. And I, too, had heart palpitations and was like, what the? But, yeah, we're going. We're rocking and rolling. Mistakes and all.
And there is a link also in the video description to his new website. Obviously, he's also been with BatmanNews.com. And last but not least, we do have the co-host of the Comics Aficionados, Doc. What's up, Doc?
I am happy to be surrounded by such greatness here today.
Dude, you were stuck in Houston without your clothes for a week. That was great.
Yeah, actually, I was. I was stuck in Houston, kept having to go to fucking Walmart to buy clothes because screw American Airlines. They lost my luggage in Dallas. Well, they just decided to not transfer it. And then not transfer it again. And then let it sit in Houston's airport for an entire day. Because why not? Yeah. So that was really fun. I mean, I love Texas. But I just don't like American Airlines. I don't really like flying these days. It kind of sucks.
All right,
so
Doc,
yeah,
you're going so far off comic book.
yeah, I am. But I did manage to get to a comic shop while I was down in Texas. Picked up a couple of 80s Spider-Man back issues that I was missing, and to fill in some holes. And yeah, it was nice. I stopped at Bedrock City. They're always one of their shops. I don't remember which one it was. They got like 6 in Houston. So if you're in Houston, go shop at Bedrock City. They're a great shop.
How is Fred
Absolutely.
Flintstone doing?
Probably pretty good, but I think Bam Bam and Pebbles were running the shop that day.
Yeah, jeez.
All right, well, let's get right into the news. This is the top topic, and we do have a special guest that will be able to give us some insight into this. We had an interview with Daniel Cherry III, general manager of DC Comics, also Jim Lee, the chief creative officer and publisher of DC Comics. And I came away that it felt like they were a little bit out of touch. They weren't exactly giving a lot of information. Even the things that they were addressing, it felt like we're in complete. I'm in complete disagreement of their assessment of what we're seeing. Now we do have a person on the panel that has worked with Jim Lee closely. Was came up through comic books at Wildstorm. Eric, what did you think about this interview in Jim Lee? Is this the Jim Lee that you know, or is this corporate boss Jim Lee?
I think this is in line with what Jim has to do in order to be a boss, right? There's the Jim Lee that I sat with in the pit. Completely personable, professional, and I think this is in line. I think if you're going to be giving an interview in which they ask you general things about the future of your company, you take 2 steps back and talk even more generally, which is amazing corporate speak. We talked about this offline, or in the green room, to be like, yeah, I think this is in line, and Jim is completely capable of this, so made total sense to me. You answer things without really answering them. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. We do have a super chat from Blade Kramer. Wes, I just need to say I saw your video on Suicide Squad Get Joker. I think that was the most depressed I've seen you in one of your review vids. Nah, you need to see some of my Tom King reviews. I'm way more depressed at those. So I wasn't.
He has to edit the
altogether
news
depressed
out.
But that was not the best comic book. Obviously, we will be getting that one to the end of it. But I wasn't depressed on that one. I was really tired because I recorded that very late. We've also got Kenneth Dowling. Good morning, fellas. Great day today. Doc, you get back issue Spider-Man comics? Yes, that's the way to go. Let's get it, guys. All right, Doc. How many back issue Spideys did you get?
I only picked up like 4 or 5.
That's 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. I was filling in some holes. The when I'm traveling these days, trying to fill in holes in any of my X runs is impossible. So I've been focusing whenever I'm hitting new shops on ASM, unless somebody's got a wall book, copy of like X-Men 9 or one of the obscure some of the variant era or the reprint era X-Men's. No luck at all.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Kenneth Dowling. So I did want to send this one over to Joe. Obviously, you are a comic book writer. You're in the know. You have peers that are probably working for DC Comics, in writing for them. There's been a major overhaul as far as their creative talent. We've seen a lot of the long-standing talent that would have been the names and the headlines that would bring people into comic books so they could reduce costs and stuff like that. And they specifically... We're talking about like sharing revenues with creators and stuff like that. That's something that kind of stands out in that interview that I just don't see that. Is that the impression that you got, or maybe you have seen from other people within the industry that read that?
I know they used to do, they used to be a little more on top of that. And they have been in terms of reaching back out to creators when they start putting out trades and omnibuses and stuff like that. They've been doing a little better with that. I know a few older creators that had their stuff put back in print in the past couple of years that said, oh wow, I got a check for X amount of dollars and I hadn't heard from DC in years and things like that. So I do know they're doing good for people like that. I know, like, for example, DC's in touch with people like Bill Loeb's in terms of making sure he gets his royalty payments and stuff like that. So all of that stuff is good. In terms of like the revenue sharing, I know that, people talk about, oh, you create these new characters and, you can do the revenue sharing if they're in movies or cartoons and stuff like that. That all gets really dicey because they have that whole clause of if the character isn't original, if they're derivative, you don't qualify. Every once in a while, you'll see someone pipe up about like, oh, like this version of this character appeared on Arrow. And even though I created it, it was, the daughter of this other character, or, it was the second version of this character. So I wasn't, I didn't qualify for equity sharing and things like that. So it's mixed. It's a weird mixed system because some of the characters that you think would count as derivative don't. And then it's not a perfect system for sure.
I've had someone try to explain it to me, and I was like, man, that's a lot of moving parts. everything has its own rule.
Can I ask you guys? I read the article a handful of times, and when we say that the leadership is out of touch, which part of it stood out to the most to you guys to be like, oh, that doesn't seem like it's grounded in a lot of reality?
Oh, I know which. the one that really stuck out to me was the part of, I mean, I understand like the whole like not when Jim said you can't rest on our laurels, and having an influx of new voices, new characters, and new points of view is vital to keeping the industry healthy and representative of current times. Did they not watch what Marvel did for like 6 years and fail miserably at? And then not only are they doing the same things, the new voices that they're using are just the recycled failed voices from Marvel from 5 years ago. So like that's how out of touch it's like and this is the one part where I was like, Jim, dude, get the fuck out of the DC bubble, man. Like you seem like you're a really smart dude, but you just watched someone else do all of the exact same things with all of the exact same creators and fail miserably at it. I'm sorry, your editorial is not that drastically much better top to bottom to prevent that same exact outcome.
Gotcha.
So that's where I thought he was out of touch.
There's another part. This one, like, I felt like Jim Lee was out of touch with his job, actually. When he said, occasionally you'll run across that article or tweet, and I have to bite my tongue not to jump into the conversations. It's the furthest thing from the truth. If anything, it's the exact opposite. It feels like it's his job to jump into the conversation and clear things up and make sure that misinformation isn't out there being perpetuated.
Yeah.
I hear you guys nodding. Is that you guys agree? Do you think that he should get in front of a couple of...
Well, I'll just jump in with this too. Like, I used to have a corporate job. I worked a corporate job for 10 years. And even if I think he's out of touch with fans, but I think some of the comments he made is also out of touch within the people that work within his own industry. And there's a point where when you're in his job, you want to come forward and have statements. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. Nothing's ever going to be exactly what you want it to be. But you need to be responsible for creating that narrative and shifting that conversation a certain direction that other people can understand and realize, even if it's just like, we're not going to tell you everything or why we're doing something, but here's 20% transparency so you can kind of get on board and you're bought in as well and understand why we're making decisions. And I think there's an aspect of that he needs to do in his job. But he mentioned like doing less titles, and they're doing more titles than they've ever done. And he mentioned pay rates, and people are talking about they're getting lower pay rates than ever. Like, it was, for me, that's what I honed into, of like, just because of my past work history.
And also saying that they were going globally, like the one product that they have that is global is this, DC, Infinite, digital app. It's only available in North America. Like,
I do think, though, that this was clearly a canned interview from months, if not several months ago. They were coming up on like the 1 year anniversary of like getting Daniel Cherry on board and all of that. So I really wouldn't be shocked if they were like, hey, we're coming up on this. We got this interview. Can we just like do like a quick update and, you know, throw it up on the Hollywood Reporter website and then just be like, yeah, whatever.
Well, again, that's where Jim Lee, or especially Daniel Cherry, since he's in marketing, he should have been smart enough to realize where we were a year ago is completely different than where we are now.
Oh, sure.
And been like, let's just do a different interview or a new interview.
And additionally, you know, you are right there. And when Jim's talking about like having to bite his tongue, you know, okay, he doesn't have to. I understand why he was doing it, because he felt like, okay, if I give this oxygen, you know, it's going to keep going. But when you have loud voices, and there's a lot of things that are maybe misinformation out there, rather than addressing them directly, because that does give them oxygen, you can address them sideways. Like, you know, when there was the rumor about like DC shutting down publishing, all they had to do was release the information about their event that starts in September, which would have been after June and would have killed all the momentum of that. Instead, they just stayed silent, didn't address it at all, didn't talk about anything beyond June, and wonder why it kept getting, you know, traction. Like, they didn't do anything to dissuade you don't have to directly address it, but you can dissuade notions.
No, I don't think
online.
Jim Lee should be jumping into Twitter arguments.
No,
Oh,
he
yeah.
But, you know,
No,
it is
right.
their job to correct the record, make sure that
Yes.
people understand that they have confidence in the product. There were a lot of people that literally legitimately believed DC wasn't going to publish a physical comic starting in July.
And all
So
they had to do to eliminate that would have been talking about like their new sales initiative for this coming fall. That's not directly talking about it. It's not directly addressing it, but it totally dissuades that illusion.
So maybe not Jim, but does DC have an official sort of like press secretary? Do they have a voice box that people turn to and ask questions to, and they're the ones that control the narrative? Is that been set up? Is there an official person for that?
I think we also have to look at the past year and a half has been so different, because I think a lot of what we're saying Jim Lee should be doing is what Dan and Jim used to do at Comic-Cons, because they used to always have their panel that was Meet the Publishers, and it gave them the chance to kind of like set the record straight without necessarily addressing something specifically. You know, we haven't really had cons to that degree for the most part, so they haven't had the opportunity to do that. But that's where he should have come forward in interviews, because I think the only thing he's done to even remotely set the record straight was Fandom, which was a huge success for DC and Warner. And I think they should have picked up on that. So even if he's got like Twitch and YouTube, he should have just done like a monthly or quarterly video being like, hey, this is what we're working on. It's great. If you build excitement,
Daniel always kind of did side interviews at those Comic-Cons, and he would really get into addressing stuff. And he never really did that.
And isn't that what Daniel Cherry's job is? He's a marketing guy, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
He should be out there marketing. I mean, this isn't complicated.
Everett Todd says Warner Entertainment has too many departments. I think they were trying to get rid of all the overlap, but of course they're doing another restructure.
Yeah.
When it's Warner Discovery, it'll be too many departments again, right?
I will just say one thing about DC too. You know, we know they had the layoffs. Their offices got gutted, and I'm sure there wasn't a lot of cross training or understanding what other people's responsibilities were. And I guarantee you, they spent 6 months to the past year just trying to figure out, oh, who did this? Oh, they were supposed to do that. How do we do this? So they were probably were and still are just spinning and in the weeds. So I will give them that credit, but that's also one of the things. If you're a business person, you try to figure these things out before you do layoffs.
For sure.
Yeah,
No.
and Marvel tends to also go through similar things, and for whatever reason, it does not stick to them in the same way, and it's very weird. Like,
How do you mean, Jim?
Like Marvel also has issues with. I mean, they had issues with being severely short-staffed editorially before the DC layoffs, but like for whatever reason, that never stuck to them. And then they went like silent last year during the height of the pandemic. With it was like, well, when are we going to be sending out comics? And they were like, for like a couple of months there, and it didn't stick to them in the same way. It's very weird. how that turns out. But
Can you point to like in that same time when they went quiet, were they embroiled in some other bit of controversy? Because I think like, they didn't have to talk about that, about shipping comics or whatever it was, but they may have been knee deep into something else where they're like, we're talking about this right now. We're trying to put out that fire,
I think they used DC moving to Lunar to kind of like everyone was yelling and screaming about that, and they were like, "Oh, cool, we can kind of just coast while everyone's yelling at DC."
Right.
That was a good distraction.
Yeah, it was that Simpsons episode where Krusty's gonna, kill himself in the plane or fake his own death, and Skinner opens the door, and it's Chalmers is with his mom, and he's like, "I really need a distraction right now." And then Krusty's just screaming, flying a plane, street level, and he's just like, "That'll do nicely." Like it was that.
Yeah. But isn't this pretty typical for, mainstream comic book leadership across the whole, though? Like, I mean, across the board, which is there doesn't seem, and the reason why I asked about that press secretary position is because I don't know if there is a quote unquote trusted individual that people talk, because Jim Lee and Daniel Cherry, yeah, sure, you could ask them to come out and talk to people, but I think they operate at a very different level than somebody who are supposed to be open and informative in the way that we need them to,
Yeah, that's what Dan Didio did. He used to go in and he would talk to the retailers. I guess they had their own Facebook group, so he was always answering questions about the future of the titles. Like I said, he was always doing multiple side interviews at any kind of con, where he would be addressing all the little stuff that, not everybody's handled to do that, though. I will admit that, going out there.
But it's essential, though. It's critical in that industry, right?
Yeah. Go ahead, Doc.
And to be fair, Jim, on a one-on-one level is very personable and everything,
Sure.
But he's never been. I mean, we can go back even to the '90s. That Stan Lee video with him and Rob and Todd and Mark.
Right.
Jim was the quiet one.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the big boisterous carnival barker. That was Rob and Todd.
Mm-hmm.
Jim's never really been that guy. He's
Sure.
kind of a very soft-spoken dude. So I don't know if asking him to do that, you're asking him to get outside of his wheelhouse, really, and get outside of his comfort zone completely. But Daniel Cherry, they need somebody like that. Dan Didio was good for that. He, like him or hate him, he had that personality. Same way at Marvel with Joe Quesada. Joe Quesada was that guy. Stan was that guy. Jim Shooter was that guy.
Yeah.
And DC currently doesn't have that. And to be perfectly honest, Marvel currently doesn't have that
No,
either.
I don't think so either. Yeah.
Because CB Cebulski is a very quiet, soft-spoken, doesn't really talk a lot kind of guy. And Daniel Cherry, I think he's a marketing guy. He hides behind his marketing content rather than his personality. But no, I think they do need somebody like that. They need somebody to be the front and center, the focal point, the go-to person to talk to. And DC doesn't have that. Marvel really doesn't even have that right now.
Sure.
I don't know. So, Josh, you are the DC guy. You cover all the Batman stuff and other characters. Was there anything else that kind of stood out to you in that interview, or lack of covering it in that interview?
I mean, just a general sense, and I've had conversations with people about this before, and it's not just DC, it's Marvel and a lot of other publishers, but it always blows my mind at the appearance of how it doesn't seem like there's anyone there that actually knows how to run a business properly. And I think first and foremost, you need to understand it's a business and run it properly. And I think, there's an operational aspect that these companies need to look into and figure out. Because as much as you're making something that's creative, you're also, trying to pay bills. And it's a very general blanket statement, but
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, what do you mean by that? Like, what did you pick out that made you go
I mean,
business-wise? That doesn't make much sense.
I mean, so you've got Perch, who's done videos where he's talking about retrospectives of books, and you have editors and publishers that don't even know the numbers of those books. They don't know the numbers that those issues pulled in, how much money it made, how much money it didn't make, and then they're making decisions that are business decisions without knowing that. So if you've got a whole organization of people that are making those types of decisions without understanding long-form or even short-term growth, long-form growth, you can't make savvy business decisions. You know, you're putting people then in leadership or in positions that you're not going to have a good return on.
Oh, for sure.
It's a lot of that. And that becomes just to strategic planning. If you don't understand that, how do you make a strategic plan that will be successful? You just kind of keep making decisions where you shoot yourself in the foot.
And
I guess what I don't have.
point.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
He says Jim Lee is not Stanley. He's more Jack Kirby. Workman-like.
Personality-wise, yeah. I feel like he's, one-on-one, talking to him, great. Get him in front of an audience. That's not really his wheelhouse.
See, I would disagree, because I think Jim is actually very personable. He's not as boisterous as like Dan Didio, but just the interactions that I've seen with him at cons, and it's been multiple cons, if you put him in a room and tell him he has to start talking about something, he's very good. And he's kind of got this like everyman grassroots aspect to him, that he's relatable, he's engaging, you get where he's coming from. And I almost feel like that's easier to buy into than like, oh my God, look at this, everything's awesome. So I think he's the perfect person for it. I just think they need to make sure he can have time to do it.
Well, he's definitely not a carnival barker.
Not at all.
Yeah. He's not that dude. Yeah,
but
I was gonna say
when he talks, he is passionate about it because he's passionate about this industry. And if you get someone that's passionate about something, you can connect and jive with what they're going for.
For sure.
Yep.
What's interesting, I thought Scott Snyder was going to step into kind of this role. We knew he was going to be like one of the creative heads or whatever, but that certainly hasn't happened. He's kind of doing best Jacket Press. It seemed more like now.
And good for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's better off.
So.
I think in the long run he probably is. Especially creatively. I feel there is a disconnect. I not necessarily between readership or customers and the DC leadership, but DC leadership and DC's actual actions. That's where I feel like that's the biggest out of touch. Like they're steering a ship and they're giving commands, and then everybody's doing like the opposite.
Or I don't think they're being...
talk about how we're making sure that these characters, across mediums make sense. And I'm going, I just read, Suicide Squad Get Joker this week. I watched the movie. That's two different Harley Quinns. They're not even remotely the same. It's different characters.
Sure.
How long? I got to ask how long that Get Joker book was in the pipeline for before the movie came out, right? Is there enough sort of hand wavy things you can do to be like, they're kind of similar. They're kind of similar.
I think
characters.
It was specifically supposed to come out, in conjunction with the movie. They had multiple like Suicide Squad books. I think they were supposed to come out.
And
gotcha.
And if you're gonna do like this is some of like the basic logistics things that I don't even know if they're actually doing. Like, hey, let's do this book about these characters coinciding with the release of this. So let's get you so that you know what the fucking movie is going to be about and the characters, how they're going to portray them in the movie. So you can write the book to feel like it's attached to the movie. Instead, they're like, oh, no, you each have to do your thing in a vacuum. None of you are allowed to talk to each other. And let's just hope that it works out.
Right.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I mean, it really doesn't, because you get, they talk about, you're talking about product synergy, you're talking about global outreach, and their books are still only essentially distributed in North America and South America, and a little bit of Europe. And you went to a smaller distributor, which is a better distributor, but it has less of a global reach. And even Diamond, I guarantee their they're shrinking over their global distribution because they no longer have DC and Marvel money in their domestic distribution to support that. So they're gonna have to make a choice at some point. And then they have a digital app that is only good in North America. None of this shit. I mean, outside of like, I feel like the only thing whenever they're talking about global is just movies. That's it.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing that's actually global in any of these companies.
Yeah. I think that's
not even their streaming platforms. HBO Max isn't global yet. Disney Plus hasn't gone fully global.
Yeah, I mean, HBO Max. That's something that DC themselves can't control. I think there are areas of synergy, and I think they were trying to lean into that, but they should have given specific examples. That way, you're not sitting here going, "Wait, what?" Because you have the main Suicide Squad line and their publishing books that kind of leaned into what they're doing with the movies. You got Peacemaker front and center. The global thing, the only thing I could think of globally was I know they're doing a push to get a lot of their trades and graphic novels published in other countries. They're also doing this Batman the World where they're pulling in creatives from all over the world. All these different countries are represented not only in the country where the story's told, but also the creators that are making that story. But that's it. But even if that's it, say we're trying to have a global initiative. Here's an example, because then it cuts out so many questions.
But that goes back to Doc's point earlier, though, Josh, which is like you can have all of these creatives from anywhere else on the planet, but you're only publishing it in North and South America. So as an initiative, it makes sense to sort of infuse it with creators from all over the place. But if in the distribution model you immediately cap yourself by only having it on 2 continents, that doesn't make much sense. Why do the outreach if you can't get it into other people's hands, right? Or am I missing something?
No, as far as I know, with Batman the World, they are pushing it globally. Like that was part of the whole thing, is to try to get
it's like a coffee table book.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, right.
And it's like a collection. I think it's like 16 or maybe 12 different stories from different creators, and they're going to push them in their home countries as well. But there's an effort there. Could it be stronger? Yeah. I don't know the logistics of trying to publish, overseas or in other countries. Joe might have a better idea of that. No, maybe.
Maybe. But, I mean, but kind of segueing from that, one of the other parts of this article that was perplexing was, I believe it was Jim Lee said it in the article, the whole creators come to us and like working with us because, we provide, marketing, publicity, right, for books and things like that. And I have no idea where the hell that came from. I mean,
yeah. But no. This is exactly
Simon,
what I was saying, though. This is exactly what I was saying. It's like they're talking about things, and their company is doing the exact opposites.
Yeah.
They say they have this, marketing and publicity and sales and production and distribution and everything, but then they're not helping with any of that. Like, okay, I'm so confused.
Yeah, I read that bit that Joe's talking about too, and I said, like, do you guys do that? Do you do you provide the infrastructure so that people can only focus on, should only be able to focus on the creative side? Because if that's true, you're really poor at messaging that out. The socialization of that is almost 0%. And the fact that they had to use this most recent successful creator-owned thing as the example, you go like, oh yeah, but that doesn't make it true. It just makes it so that this just happened to, it seemed like you just dovetailed a sort of byline next to it and go, oh, by the way, we also do this. But that has never been a thing that you guys outwardly broadcast, which is that helps with the confusion.
I mean,
in fact,
I will say
left DC Vertigo, went over to Image because they had better, they have better rights.
Well, they left DC Vertigo because somebody ran it into the fucking ground. Not gonna name names here. But I mean, and they did mention that over there, like, in that same section, they were talking about how, it probably won't be on the same level that existed before with the Vertigo imprint. I'm like, we're just gonna gloss over the fact that the guy you just fired a couple of months ago ran it into the goddamn ground. Okay, cool.
No, Doc. Vertigo died a lot longer before that. Is once they realized that Neil Gaiman could take Sandman and go make a lot of money, they said, well, that's not right. So when people went to go to Vertigo, you had to sign your TV and movie rights away.
I know.
People stopped going to Vertigo and they went to Image.
People did stop going to Vertigo at that time.
That's when Vertigo got in a bad way.
The whole point with that too was what people used to say behind the scenes about that with Vertigo is it was one of the worst deals in town, and this is people within DC. But if they make a movie or TV show out of it, then you're really fucked. That's what they would say about the Vertigo contract.
That's not a good selling point, man. You don't advertise like, well, it's the worst deal in town, but man, when they make that movies, you're you're doubly screwed. And you're like,
I mean, that's not what they would. Yeah, you don't tell that to the creators, but the people inside were aware and knew that. Yeah.
The last thing I noticed in the article is when the Hollywood Reporter themselves were crediting Daniel Cherry, like with the creation of Jace Fox Batman. John Ridley has been in interviews and specifically said they came up with that with Dan Didio one-on-one. Yeah. So I thought that was weird that they were getting him some credit. I'm sure you noticed that one, Josh.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's you've had John Ridley credit him, and you could even say that this is potentially not this specifically, but part of what Dan Didio was let go for was this sudden change. It was weird. It was interesting. I'm sure I would as much as I disliked a lot of what Dan did, I would feel bad if he saw that, and I'm sure he did, and had to live with that. That was undeserved.
The part that I question is if you know you didn't do it, why not correct? Like, hey, you're credited for doing X, Y, and Z. Actually, no, that belongs to. That credit belongs to, or the honor of that goes to whomever, because at the end of the day, it shouldn't really impact your business because you're moving forward with it anyway. Why not just set the record straight? I think it goes back to, it'll help build foundational trust between you and your audience to go like, okay, this guy's an upstanding guy. Everybody knows this dirty little secret, and I'm glad that he's not taking credit for it. I don't know what the downside of giving credit where credit is due in that sense, at least in this particular instance.
I'm wondering if there's like this slight little just like twist within this that it is Daniel Cherry's win because it was Jace Fox and not Luke Fox. And if he's gonna put his name. Well, I mean, but seriously though, I mean, because when Dan was there, and I can say this with certainty, it was supposed to be Luke Fox that was Batman. And then it became Jace. So if that was what came and changed, and that's what he's taking credit for, it's still shitty. I mean,
in fairness, Daniel Cherry has absolutely nothing else to rest his hat on that he's accomplished.
Well, the Batman Fortnite has been a huge success.
Okay,
I'm not sure exactly.
You are
solely
correct.
on him, but that thing has been enormous.
Nobody
could have predicted that one, right?
That one has been big, and if he had a lot to do with it, great. But other than that, I mean, literally, he's done nothing that anyone is aware of since he's been
we haven't seen so much. He hasn't really been out there. Does anyone else have anything to say about this DC Comics article? There's it's on the Hollywood Report if you want to check it out yourselves, because we have some really good news to talk about.
Yeah.
Good.
Let's see
Let's
the good
get
news
to the
version.
On to the good.
comic book sales and potential growth of the industry. We had not seen Diamond numbers since, I believe, March 2020. So it'd been like 15 months since we actually had actual sales numbers. And they're pretty darn good, Joe. I'm sure you were even surprised. Now, there are a few mitigating circumstances, but no matter how you look at it, the June sales in 2021 are absolutely enormous in comparison to what was happening before.
No, sure. All of that looked good. There's nothing really, I think, to complain about there. But I think something we've also been noticing the past few months, at least I've noticed just from different retailers on YouTube, going to shops, talking to other creators, there seems to be a higher number of orders being shorted and things like that as well. So now, though, I'm not sure how that factors in, but I'm constantly seeing delays. With some shops, a lot of places I talk to get shorted on, particularly smaller books, indie books, and things like that. So
we had your experience with Beckstar that was really strange. Sure. Where some shops were getting it one week and other shops were getting it the next week.
Yeah, and it wasn't on Mad Cave's end. So, because I talked to them and they'd be like, no, everything shipped at the same time. But once it's there, it's out of our hands. So, I'm sure it's not a universal experience. I'm sure there are plenty of people who are continuing to have a good experience with that. But it's, it is concerning when you see like, oh, the numbers are going up, but the service seems to be a bit in disarray. So that's something that can potentially kneecap growth. Because there's a lot of casual comics people, especially when it comes to indie stuff. If they go to the shop once, they're not going to put the indie book on a pull. And a lot of shops, even if you do, they don't pull it. You go, and then if it's not on the shelf, the window's gone, and you're like, whatever. And then you don't go to the shop for another 2 weeks, a month, a couple of months later. So like that's something, not getting books on time and the right amount is the kind of thing that's going to start, preventing this growth from continuing.
Can somebody explain to me, like define for me what they mean by growth? Because I've read that article.
Sure.
And I'm trying to understand what it's in context to, right? To say like, oh, there's so much growth in the month of June, the year 2021. And I go like, okay, but in what's the context of that growth? What does it mean when there's growth this time around? And we should internalize it as positive. I don't quite understand.
Well, the entire sales in June of 2019 would have been, I believe, 26 million. And then in June of 2021, it's 40 million. So it's 14 million more. It's basically doubled. But there are a few things that you have to take into consideration. It was a 5-week shipping month, so there were more there was an extra shipping week. Also, they started calculating the numbers a little bit differently. And those numbers are all based on the top 300 comics sold. One of the ways they changed it was Diamond used to penalize if you sent something out and it was returnable. They would automatically remove 10% of your sales to account for return comics. That's no longer being taken into account. And also they started, basically putting all the SKUs together. Like if you had 3 versions of a Batman comic that had 3 different cover prices, they would be listed in Diamond's, sales numbers as 3 different items. Now they're consolidating. So really there's more comics technically in there. That wouldn't account for all of it. I mean, the sales are really good. But they're comparing numbers to numbers as far as dollars. They're not doing units.
They're still only calculating dollars, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
First of all, I am skeptical of this, mostly because Diamond is in a position where it would be beneficial for them to lie. And
you think they're fudging the numbers, Doc?
of no, and there is no downside to them to lying. And
Doc,
but
did you look at the comic books that were being shipped in June of 2021?
I did.
The number one comic that shipped 280,000 issues was a $10 comic. Also in the top 10 was another $10 comic. There were a lot of high-profile number one and special milestone issues that month.
That was the next point I was going to make. Yes. There's a lot of price difference between this month and last month. This year and last year. There's a lot of price difference.
Well, it wasn't last year. It was 2019.
Yeah,
2 years ago.
Yeah. Well, 2 years. Whatever. I don't really care.
Doc, I'm backing your point up because the price has changed even more.
Yes, yeah. There's significant differences in prices. I'm not certain. I honestly believe the numbers. And we'll find out over. I like looking at larger data sets for stuff like
we'll
this.
know something new. in July.
Yeah, exactly. And now they've always kind of done you could always previously merge SKUs that were together, like especially with DC having like they had the standard version and like the card stock one.
But they never did until this month specifically.
No,
They've never
it
done
didn't.
before
It
in their
didn't
account.
specifically and do it by default. That's the difference.
It changes the numbers a little bit.
Yes, it does. It definitely skews the numbers. There's issues with no returnability penalty being factored in here. There's as well as the fact that how many just monthly books are now $4.99 instead of $3.99 compared to 2 years ago.
So, Kenneth Dowling, are the numbers back issues or across the board? These are new comic sales. These aren't even reorders. So this is nothing in your back issue bin. This isn't reorders. This is new comic books shipped from Marvel and anyone with Diamond accounts. And then they're guessing on the DC numbers as well. That's what's going on there. We have another super chat from King KDI. Every time there are huge numbers, there's always a change in calculation. I noticed that too. How did the units rate to year date over the last 3 to 4 years for June? That's a little bit harder to come by.
Yeah, that we're not getting
That would
those
be-
numbers. I want to see those numbers because those are the numbers that really matter for trending. All the dollar amount proves is there's a certain percentage of the audience that you could be charging $50 an issue and they're probably still going to buy.
Sure.
Yeah, but if you're making more money on less issues, that's more profit.
Yes, but it's the inevitable end result of that is selling one copy for $50,000. That's the inevitable end result. And you're just selling the original art to some dude that really likes your comic, some rich dude that really likes your comic. That's not an industry anymore. That is an artist having a landed gentry patron. That's not comics industry anymore. Sorry.
All right, well, Doc, that's the numbers that we have. So that's what we got to work with. So it doesn't, just because you're looking at this, you're like, wow, look at the numbers change. That doesn't automatically mean that this is so much healthier and everything. Things do look good, and you cannot deny the numbers that they are trending upwards. We also saw Diamond went out there and they were bragging that there are 20% more accounts open through Diamond, new accounts, compared to the accounts the previous 3 years. And that number, that data itself, Joe, has been widely misconstrued. I think Tim Seeley went out and was like, look, there's 20% more new comic shops. That didn't take into account the closed accounts, people moving shops, creating a new account because they changed something with their structure. There's a lot of things that went into that weren't taken into account or explained, Joe.
Yeah, I think there are also people who were creating accounts because they were shifting from not just moving stores, but either closing a store temporarily or moving into like mail order fulfillment and things like that, and create a new account for that. So yeah, I mean, that 20% increase seemed to signify more like disruption than actual growth in terms of shops.
You're
also,
probably
Diamond doesn't only ship comic books; they ship collectibles.
Yeah,
you're probably getting there. I've contemplated signing up for a Diamond account in the past. It's not difficult. You could sign up for one in about like an hour. And if you want to just order, miscellaneous like Funko Pops and little statues and resell them on eBay or Amazon, you can do that. You're not actually opening a shop.
No.
You're not opening a mail order service. You're just a reseller that is buying cheap through the distributor. It's not hard to do, and there's a lot of, especially during the pandemic, a lot of people were looking for new ways to make money. So opening a little online reseller when there's no upfront fee to have a Diamond account, why not give it a shot?
It's interesting how, and I don't know how they leveraged that article. Did they just say the data, and then depending on the individual takes it, they can be really pessimistic or optimistic about it? They leverage it as growth, or as a positive, or they leverage it as, I don't think that's true, right? Because I always ask, like, what does it ultimately mean for an industry that there is 20%, or that the numbers are so much better than it was 2 years ago? Right? Like, is it that much healthier, or is that what they're implying with that article? I couldn't quite understand it.
It's definitely meant to imply that the comics industry is healthier. It doesn't. Well, no, because I mean, it's ignoring. You're giving specific information that looks good. It's spin. You're
Right.
spinning to look like you're more successful than you are, because they're specifically not giving you dollar amounts or unit numbers. They are specifically not mentioning how much difference in average cost per unit you're dealing with
Right.
over in those two comparisons. They're just giving you dollar to dollar in two comparison times and saying, look how much better it is now.
Sure. Yeah.
We do have Yule Carter in the comments, and I do want to point this out. If you like Yule and you want to go meet the man, he's at a Comic-Con today. He's at Berkeley Comic Show, small convention in Berkeley, California. So if you're in the area, go give Yule a visit. Tell Wes sent you. Say good old Wes sent you. Maybe he'll hook you up with a deal on some Exo Man of War or Hawkman. Two of my favorite stories. Definitely check out Yule Carter. Sorry guys, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, and the reason why I asked that is because, again, numbers are just numbers, right? Depending on the avenue that they're reported, it can be conflated as, look, we're doing so much better. And then I asked, like, well, yeah, sure, those numbers make a lot of sense, but is it impacting the creators that are making them? How are those page rates doing, you guys? Or like, how are your returns on your, what do you call it, on your trade paperback? Yeah, your residuals. How are those doing? So I'm like, I can look at those numbers and go, that's awesome, but I always look at how it trickles down to actual business. And I'm biased, obviously, because I'm an artist, right? So I always take a look at it as, look, how is that impacting me if I'm working for those companies, or if I'm working specifically in that industry? And if the answer is zero,
don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
Right. Right. And if the answer is zero, I'm like, okay, cool. That's a great chart, man, but that doesn't keep my lights turned on,
Yeah.
Well, we've certainly seen a surge as far as indie comic sales, like the top of the heap for like Boom or places we've never seen before. Even discounting Berserker, which is an anomaly. You're talking about it's on the third issue and it's still shipping 130,000 copies.
That's awesome.
There's multiple issues shipping over 50,000 an issue every month, or multiple comics. Image, like Spawn, was settled down at like the 25,000 to 30,000 range. It settled in at like the 75 to 80,000 range, and it appears for quite some time. So there's really cool stuff to be gleaned out of this. And one of the cool things, if you didn't notice, Doc, was all the Marvel X-Men titles got a bump from Hellfire Gala. Pretty significant bump, mostly.
And I can walk into most of my stores around me today and still buy them off the shelf. Sorry, there was a demand
Doc,
for some of the variants.
That does not invalidate the numbers.
No, it does not.
Shops ordered them. It's on them.
Exactly.
It's their responsibility to order.
I completely understand it. They had a pretty decent number of variants, and a lot of shops elected to hit those for the audience that was going for, in order to get those variants. So as a result, you end up with a lot of
2022.
More than you'll probably get 2022. The problem will be we'll see whether or not we get 2023, because I don't think that the variant demand for that in after this year is going to be as high as it was. I could be wrong. I'm fine with being wrong.
So the Lawn Gnome, he chimed in with a little anecdotal evidence of his own. If you haven't been to the Lawn Gnome's YouTube channel, you should definitely check it out. He's a great guy. He says, I will admit that July 2021, so this next month that we'll get reporting on, was a good month for me in terms of purchasing. I never thought I would buy 50 plus books in 1 month. I did cross that threshold for the first time in July.
I would be
Somebody out there is enjoying
I would be
it.
interested to know like who the hype man is for these books that like as they're advertised them, we know that, or at least we get an inkling. We can't be 100% sure, but when they preview it in all of these different outlets, we go like, that stinks. And yet, you're talking about the Hellfire Gala, and you're like, people are still ordering that book. I don't know, at some point, we're going to have to learn as purchasers, we're going to have to learn our lesson with that, right? Like, stop
I think that's on
promoting
the
slash supporting
retailers.
that
I
book.
think there were a lot of incentive covers, special.
There were-
special covers.
That is heartbreaking.
And there was a small but vocal contingent that really wanted those like design, like their gala dresses and suits and stuff. Those variants that were they had a relatively high threshold on the ratio on them.
Yeah.
So in order to meet that small but vocal audience demand, you did have to buy a lot of unsellable A covers. And the idea is you make enough money on the markup on the variants to cover the cost of all the unsold A covers.
Yeah.
And then at that point, anything you do sell of them is gravy.
Yeah, my perspective on this is very, very narrow, but I don't believe that's a sustainable business model. I can't be convinced that it's a sustainable business model.
It's not, and you've seen it. You've seen it have. It's the law of unintended, or the law of diminishing returns in action over the past like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in for a second. I think one of the things we have to look at too is just how different the market is. We talked about indie books increasing. I think a lot of that is due to the pandemic and DC and Marvel slowing their publishing or putting pencils down. That gave creatives who have a good following a chance to go work on something, knock it out, get artists on the book. Some of these people are getting back into their big 2 titles and doing things again. So you're seeing that hype. We've got a speculation market that's growing. This article did a lot of talking about just overall sales numbers, and I think from Diamond's perspective, they did what they needed to do for themselves. They pushed themselves in a positive light, where for months now they have not had a good commentary around them, and it was something they could kind of hang a hat on to say, look, here's a win. So for them, I think it's good, and I think all this other stuff that we're talking about, they're completely valid, and companies need to discuss these things. I don't think it's something you necessarily need to report on. It's just something that these companies need to make sure they're discussing. Exactly what you were saying, Eric, like for the sake of long term, like can we sustain this long term? Because I guarantee you these bumps were definitely speculation. The speculation market, people wanting to collect for investments. And I don't know if that's going to be there 2, 3, 5 years from now.
And this kind of backs up what Doc was saying. We do have Larry's comics. Hopefully we can get Larry back on the channel soon. I love Larry. He says Hellfire Gala was the worst selling X storyline in my shop's 33-year history. And the problem with that one, I don't know if you know this one, Eric, they released all 12 issues of Hellfire Gala in 1 month. So you had to order the entire event before one issue was released.
Yeah.
So if it was the worst selling, he was stuck with all of it because he didn't get to adjust his ordering midstream once he realized his customers weren't interested.
And I think that's exactly what Doc was talking about of like, you go into a comic shop, you're still seeing them. So from the Diamond end, did they sell? Yes. From the shop end, absolutely not. And then it's going to be bad when it comes to next year because I feel like they are going to do it again and they're going to do it. And Marvel's going to be like, hell yeah.
From their perspective, it was successful. Because we got like a 33% jump in X-Men and Wolverine sales, and then the bottom tier stuff, those jumped up like 100%. Those orders doubled.
Because nobody was buying them in the first place.
And then the other thing that I always want to ask is, as a patron of a comic book store, is there somebody on the mainstream publishing end understanding the end user? Understanding the customer to go like, what does this look like when the guy walks in and sees 12 of these things? Are they incentivized to want to invest in reading all of this? Is there any thought or any sort of like plan behind that? Or is it just like release 12 so we own the shelf for 30 some odd days until the next set? Like, I don't understand the business.
I think we need an event to get us through this month to next event.
Yeah.
That's the way I take it.
that's
We
concerning.
do have Kenneth Dowling saying, I do hope this sales growth is legitimate. I want the comic industry not only to survive but thrive. Absolutely, that's all we want too. Studios who make comic movies should do their part.
Yeah,
You hope
some
so,
of the growth I know from doing some books with smaller publishers. I don't know if they're still using the same metrics for some of the smaller publishers, but I do know that Comic-Con used to kind of offset some of the smaller ones by about approximately like 20% to kind of help reflect actual sell-through of indie books. So I don't know if they ditched that metric or not to kind of pump up some of the smaller publisher numbers or not. But that could be something.
So here's two things
also-
that's sort of conflicting. Sorry to interrupt.
No.
Here's two things that's conflicting. The article that we talked about earlier with Daniel Cherry and Jim Lee, which talked about growth. And this thing that we're talking about right now, which is holding on to whatever it is that they're holding on to, which is like, let's just make sure we can get through the next month. One of those things is those two concepts are conflicting with each other, right? Because like growth to me doesn't account for whatever it is they're trying to do right now, because I don't believe this is sustainable. So there's no growth opportunities in releasing 12 comics in a month. That's just like, please, let's get through this next month, right? I can't see an angle in which they keep continuously doing these event comics where they could, where we can leverage 3%, 7% growth over the next year for X amount of years. This isn't that version. So I don't know what these companies' motivations and goals are, right? And I don't think they understand it either.
Well, I think, like, for instance, like the Hellfire Gala, that was do it so fast that nobody can realize how much of a failure it is until long after the fact. And it's trick you before you figure out you're being tricked. And that's it. And then they will try to, but then they consider it a success and they try to go to the well again the following year. And then they wonder why it doesn't work. Well, it worked last time. Well, yeah, because you didn't give us a chance to show you that it was actually a failure.
All right, I want to talk about Larry's comment here before we move on to the next topic. He makes a really good point. Diamond put out that news that accounts increased to project reliability because they have real problems this October when Marvel leaves. Marvel is going to Penguin Random House to be the distributor of their comic books.
Yeah.
Diamond is going to be a wholesaler of comic books as far as Marvel goes. That's their biggest, source of revenue. That's the comics they send out the most. That's absolutely has a big deal to do with that show.
Yep.
Oh yeah, no, that's going to be huge. I think Larry also mentioned
Diamond's going to be after that.
Yeah, Larry, I think mentioned it earlier in the chat. It's like, how do they get out of this year and survive? Maybe they'll limp through the rest of the year, but it's like, what's the plan in 2022? Like, I think if Diamond really wants to show strength, they need to roll out a plan about how they're going to be, viable after Marvel. And they haven't done that yet. And the clock's ticking on that. So they're going to, in the next month, need to come out with something that's like, hey, you know what? We're moving more into toys and collectibles, and we got this big account, and your store is gonna want collectibles and action figures and all that stuff. Penguin's not going to be sending those to you. You got to get them through. Like, they got to figure something out like that to stay in the game.
I agree.
Initially, they were going to match like Penguin Random House's like free shipping and stuff. They found out quickly that they can't do that. They rolled all that back. They're still trying to figure out logistically how they're going to handle it and like what kind of discounts they can offer anymore, because like just the shipping alone to comic shops is so much less than it was before.
Yeah, and shipping discounts, they go up when you're shipping larger volumes. And if you're cut that much, they're going to have to pay more to ship. And they're going to take an even bigger cut to try to match that. Like, it's not the
margins are thin.
Yeah.
They still have to make money. So
look, there's a simple just long-standing business axiom that a rising tide lifts all ships. The problem is there's a converse to that, which is that a falling tide sinks all ships. And Marvel and DC they're the only ones that were at Diamond that could lift or drop the tide. All the rest there, sorry, you're not big enough. You can't, and as a result, there's nothing to there's no way to sustain a business on the small volume, small margin stuff that is left at Diamond. There just isn't.
All right. Well, I think we've
Except
covered
for
this one.
Funko Pops.
We've got several other topics to get to. I do want to say before we get to the next one, if you were in Texas, if you can go to Bell County Comic Con, you will see Mark Pellegrini, Tim Lim, Doug Ernst, and Aaron Sparrow. All friends of the channel have been on here multiple times. So
And Nerd Wonder.
You can see them. And Nerd Wonder. I don't think anyone
she'll
knows what she looks like.
No, I don't think so either.
If you get a chance, definitely go to Bell County Comic Con. A lot of the friends of the channel are there, and that would be awesome. I wish I could be there myself. It looks like we are good to go. We're going to go to the Suicide Squad movie. There are indications that this is like the highest rated superhero movie since like Avengers Endgame. I don't know if I'm going.
True?
The initial critic scores were absolutely insane on this one. I think they're probably going to come down because I liked the movie. I didn't love it quite that much. Josh, you are the big DC guy. Let's hear your thoughts on Suicide Squad from James Gunn, and then we'll have a little conversation about it.
Look, I'm just gonna be honest. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's absurd. It's vulgar. It's kind of what I wanted it to be. It's very much a James Gunn film. Like,
Absolutely.
Yep. So know that going in. It's not because even the first Suicide Squad tried to have your traditional like hero story element. This does not have that. The characters for me are what won me over. Like I had so much fun with every single one of the characters and the actors portraying them. If I had one complaint, and I don't even want to say it's a complaint, just story structure. There's a lot of start and stop, and like you'll have a scene play out, and it's like you're building momentum, and then it'll cut back to like 3 days ago. And then you'll get that piece of the story, then it'll cut back again to present day, and then you'll go and they'll cut back again to like, 30 minutes ago. So from a pacing perspective, that it wasn't my favorite, but I feel like James Gunn did that on purpose to keep you off kilter. I think his main goal was like you're never going to feel settled with the story itself or with the characters. You're always going to kind of be on your toes or at the edge of your seat waiting to figure out what's going on. But I loved it. Are we discussing spoilers?
I don't know. Are we?
Well, everyone left us. It's just the three of us. So,
I won't discuss spoilers. I will just say, it's a blast. And if you don't mind vulgarity, then definitely go see it. I freaking loved John Cena in this. I thought he was hilarious. I love seeing just minor characters like Ratcatcher and Polka Dot Man, who I would have never thought had a place in a film, completely earned their place in a film. I kind of love that James Gunn went so weird to make Starro, like quote unquote, the main villain of the movie. I like that there are twists and perhaps who the real villain actually is. It's good. I had fun. I don't want to. I could spend an hour talking about it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. What do you think, Joe?
I absolutely loved it because this is one of the first times in a long time that I watched one of these movies and it was a movie. Like
as opposed to
corporate junk. Like a lot of these movies are garbage corporate junk. I love it. It's junk food, but it's not a movie. It's like when you go to a movie and you see some like it was from a director who got to like be a director. And that's so rare in these movies. They're so formulaic by the numbers. I mean, and you look like you compare what he did on like Guardians of the Galaxy, which I really like those movies, but like, whoa, he actually got to like do what he wanted. Like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are Marvel movies directed by James Gunn. Suicide Squad is a James Gunn movie that features DC characters.
Yeah,
that's way more interesting to me. And this movie coming out, like, if you watch this movie and you go, oh my God, Black Widow was a soulless nightmare.
Here's the advantage that he had with this movie, and I was discussing this with my wife when we were watching it. It's not handcuffed by a precious franchise.
Yes,
like a Batman, like a Superman, like a Wonder Woman. It didn't need to have all of that weight put on top of it. They just and he did something similar with Guardians of the Galaxy. That's why they didn't let him do Iron Man. They didn't let him do Captain America. They let him do side characters. But to your point, sure, he still had sort of, the Kevin Feige cloud over that franchise, right? Because it still needed to be protected in the MCU case. In this one, they just said, do whatever the heck you want. And it's in theme with a bunch of throwaway characters, right? So he did whatever the heck he wanted. And I think that's where, to your point, it was so much more enjoyable because he managed to tell a movie story as opposed to like, well, how does this tie into the greater DC cinematic universe? It was just like, no. And as a matter of fact, there was a point when my wife looked at him and was like, is that Will Smith's character from the first movie, right? And I go like, no. They just said never mind that first movie. Like there's some tangential ties to this one, but it's not so robust that you get hamstrung by it in a storytelling sense. It never referred back to the first movie to go remember what we did in Suicide Squad 1. It just said no. This is just him taking the toys out for a spin and playing with them. So I thought it was great. To Josh's point, there were certain things where I'm like, whoa, that's a weird. You inject that right in the middle of the whatever. Like I get it. It's necessary. It's a bit of narrative that needs to happen. So we have an understanding for the characters, and I thought each character was well motivated. You knew just enough about them, right? To go like, okay, that's an amazing way to push that story along.
Yeah.
I was shocked he made Polka Dot Man like the most relatable character.
Right.
Yeah, they spent time. They spent time, and they didn't have to, right? Because I think if you had to sort of circle around what could possibly be, and this is typical of me to think of like, that's the franchise right there. You would circle around Harley. You would circle around, John Cena's character, right? Yeah. And quite possibly Idris Elba's character. But the fact that you took time to do a bit of backstory on Polka Dot Man, a bit of backstory on Ratcatcher, I was like, that's pretty dang cool, man.
I can't believe I cared so much about Ratcatcher too.
Yeah.
But that really sells her over to the audience in a way that I was like, oh, wow, okay, I'm here for this. I care. They made me invested in that character. And James Gunn as a director, when he's allowed to do what he wants, this doesn't really happen as much in the Guardians movies, but it really happens here. James Gunn is able to do over-the-top violence for humor,
yes,
and then completely do a 180 and put you in a situation where you're like, oh my God, this character I love, don't let anything happen to this guy. Like it's that's not easy to do. And and part of what makes that so great is he makes it look easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think too, I mean, it's very clear that he approached this movie thinking like, okay, this is a character movie, not necessarily a plot driven movie. Yeah. And I think he was able to write the characters in a way that he understood, I'm going to need certain types of archetypes represented with these characters to make this successful. And then I think there's an aspect to James Gunn as a director where he is very much like, I'm handpicking the people that I work with and I'm reusing people because I know they're going to bring a lot to the table as actors. And he's got like, I'm going to use Nathan Fillion. Nathan Fillion, is a relatively small role in this, but I think he knew what Nathan could bring. And I think he's coming to these actors saying like, here's what's written, do a few takes of just doing whatever. Because I guarantee you when we get the a commentary on this, I bet 30 to 40% of this movie is ad-libbed, like what actually showed up on screen.
Sure.
So, and I think that's great. Like if you have the ability to do that, but it was so much freaking fun. Like
I was gonna highlight that. if you take a step back and really realize it in context to all the other movies that come out from DC, it was just fun. It was just so refreshing to sit there and go like, oh, there you go. Something that didn't take itself all that seriously, but just serious enough to be a complete movie, as opposed to, you know what this is setting up, right? And you're like, oh, yeah.
There were a lot
think
of good
this-
Easter eggs
Oh, 100%.
with the calendar man and everything.
Yep.
What Timothy's talking about here in the comments is, as a kid, I read the Charlton Peacemaker comics with a tagline, he loves peace so much he's willing to fight for it. I love how they changed that one. And John Cena says, I love peace so much I'm willing to kill every man, woman, and child I need to get it. I was like, it was such a good line, but I didn't even know it came out of the Charlton.
They were pretty simple characters, but they were incredibly understandable. Not immediately relatable, but you can understand like what's motivating them throughout the entire movie. They never break. And I thought like, oh good, he's not doing scenes out of convenience. Everything makes sense, which is I think is a pretty huge challenge when you're building characters up.
Figure Jog says, I don't know why the panel liked the movie. It could not have been more predictable, juvenile, and forgettable. I thought there were definitely some swerves in there that I wouldn't have predicted.
Yeah,
But
no,
it's
I love
definitely
you.
juvenile. I'll give you that.
I love your figure drawing, but I've never seen something more wrong in my life. That's whoa! Like what no. I'm sorry, and I used to work at a video store. I'm a bit of a movie snob. No,
I'm a movie snob too, but I also love, I have like an unhealthy love of the Fast and Furious franchise. So this is going to be right in my wheelhouse of absurd stupidity. I turn my brain off and just watch.
Absolutely.
I don't understand why predictability is suddenly a sort of like scarlet letter, especially if it's done well. You understand how characters and stories are going to arc. We've been brought up on 3X structures since forever. So there's nothing that's going to come down the pipe that's going to make you like, oh my gosh, I never saw that coming. So predictability isn't a good enough
I don't think it was
shield
predictable.
or
I didn't
criticism.
see the opening coming. I didn't.
Yeah, I would.
everything
This is
happens?
not even the most This is far from the most predictable
That's
DC
my point,
movie.
right?
Yeah.
Which
This
is
is
like
an Ant-Man.
right. So to that end, I don't know if that's a good enough criticism for me to go like, well, that's a bad movie because of its predictability.
I know we got the super chat. Just one comment. I will say there were things that I found predictable, but not because the movie itself was predictable. It was because as a society now, we hone into trailers in ways that we never used to.
Yeah.
We will examine trailers. And I think because I do that and I have to do that, I was able to figure some things out or assume some things were going to happen that when they happened, I was like, okay, all right, cool. I was right.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Yeah.
But other than that, like it completely throws formula out the window. And that's what was refreshing. All right. Sorry, Kenneth.
Well,
Sorry,
and the
Kenneth.
trailers, they show the last half of the movie in trailers now, which they would only show bits from the first 30 minutes. So it is easy to figure out certain plot points. But Kenneth Dowling says, I haven't seen Suicide Squad, but I feel people are getting over the shared universe model and make good standalone movies. I think the MCU should consider refocusing on going down that road to keep fresh. Well, the MCU ain't doing that until it's run its course. But, I definitely think there's a merit to the standalone films.
In fairness, though, Black Widow was definitely a standalone film because nobody gave a fuck about it. And it doesn't actually matter at all in the context of their shared universe. So that is a standalone movie.
Yeah.
It needed to come out after Civil War, before Endgame,
Well,
or before Infinity War. Yeah,
it should have been the movie between Infinity War and Endgame.
yeah, that would
I
have
think
worked.
really
Ronan should have been that movie. That's just me.
Yeah.
See that
Well,
Hawkeye
we're
Ronan
supposed to
movie.
we're supposed to see some of what Ronan did in Hawkeye. So I'm curious to see what they do there. I had a conversation about Black Widow in particular where I had made the comment, if this came out after Civil War, because of what we know with the end credit scene and what's revealed and Yelena, if you had that and then gone into Infinity War and Endgame, you would have had a completely different, like, unsettling kind of suspense of, oh crap, what's going to happen to Black Widow?
Yeah.
And, sorry,
This-
spoilers, you should have seen Black Widow by now, but why is Hawkeye going to kill her?
Right.
Like you would have gone into that movie feeling different. But
Yeah.
on its own, where it is, yeah.
it should have been the movie between them because it would have actually given more stakes to Natasha, her death in Endgame.
Yeah.
There was no stakes to her. It was kind of just like we like each other and we're friends and we care about each other a lot and we want to save each other thing in Endgame. But this would have actually built her up just to make her sacrifice actually matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now her
Well,
sacrifice makes no sense because she was like, I don't have a family.
Yeah.
Let me die. And it was like, oh, it's like, wow, you really went overboard to get out of not having to talk to your family anymore.
To Kenneth's point, though, I think, everyone always compares the MCU with DC's film universe. And I think if you're looking at numbers, you have to admit Marvel's blowing DC out of the water. And DC's had a lot of infighting amongst fans of what is or isn't successful or what is or isn't good. But I think the one thing DC is going to be able, and Warner is going to be able to hang their hat on, is that they're not limited by just a shared universe. They can take more risks. They can do more artistic things. So I'm hoping that that's what they kind of run with and speak to and market of, you really don't know what you're going to get here. And hey, artist, if you want to do something artistic, you want to do something that is your vision, we're the superhero company for you, not Marvel. So that's what they need to push. Because when you look at Joker, whether you liked it or not, it was success. When you look at this, box office, we'll have to see. But I think creatively, it's a success.
Yep.
Yeah.
So far, it has broken some records as far as an R-rated pre-release. We'll see how that translates to a full box office. We do have King KDI with the £5 super chat. It was a Guy Ritchie style movie, a movie without a panel of corporate oversight putting their hands on it. It definitely
certainly felt like that.
Yeah.
Guy
Ritchie has some other tropes that he does that are a little different, but I get what you're saying.
There were definitely some tones and vibes that were pulled from various filmmakers to do this. I think character-wise, you very much had a James Gunn vibe. Plot-wise, I would actually say you had some Joss Whedon plot type.
Yeah, Cabin in the Woods.
Even Serenity.
100%.
If you look at the crux of the arc, it was very much Serenity. So.
Filmmaking wise, I akin it to, when Dave Fincher is allowed to do his movie and then he has to go do one for corporate Warner Brothers, right? So it's like the difference between Fight Club and The Game, or you know what I mean? Where he's given okay, I have to do this one because I need funding for Fight Club. I need funding for Seven. I need funding for these movies that I really want to do. So I think that's
and
the
make
feeling
Alien
that I get.
3.
Right, that's the one that had my foot in the door, and then I get to do whatever the heck I want. Yeah, it was fun. I liked it.
Yeah, although
the only
Alien
problem I
3
have is Starro is far too big a threat for the Suicide Squad to ever deal with. It's like a Justice League.
I said this in the green room, but the fact that there looks like a guy inside a big fluffy suit. And I know that thing is completely CGI and 3D, but it looks like a bad guy from a Power Rangers movie. Yeah. I loved it. I just loved it.
I loved that.
I won't give away spoilers, but Wes, I had the same thought as you going into this movie, and there's one line in the movie about halfway through. I was like, oh, okay, that's going to explain the ending, and then they went a different direction, anyways. But if we ever have a spoiler discussion, I will bring that up. But there's one character in particular where they set up this character is going to bring down Starro, and then they don't.
Yeah. So interesting movies. Anyone else have anything to say about Suicide Squad before we talk about who we would like to see in the movies?
I haven't seen it yet, so I'm just gonna shut up.
Yeah, right. Starro just wanted his sled.
Oh, okay. Was it named Rosebud?
Yeah,
it was. It was.
Before we move on, because none of us have mentioned King Shark, and I have to mention King Shark. You can't say you love him as a character because he's dumb as dirt and says 2 words and that's it. But my God, he is the pet that I want to have. If I could have King Shark as a pet, I would be a happy person.
He's an amazing.
Everything.
He's
Stallone, especially.
As a mechanism, he is a great tool that James Gunn consistently used whenever a scene got a tiny bit too wordy.
Yeah.
Anytime that he wants to distract you on the narrative or he's laying out so much information, and then King Shark, tons of information, King Shark. You're like, you can almost count on it when they're getting the debriefing, and it's like, whoa, this is a lot of information that Waller is giving to them. Cut to King Shark. Oh, here's mission sensitive stuff. Cut to King Shark. It's like it's a great mechanism.
He's the perfect cutscene.
He is.
Yes.
He is. To get you back into the thinking of the movie again.
Larry's Comics mentioned this. I believe it was Larry's Comics mentioned this earlier. He said we need to give DC credit because with the movies releasing and they have a King Shark book tied to Free Comic Book Day.
Yep.
And just kudos for that. Completely agree. I've also, if you saw the movie in IMAX, you got this great little comic.
It's
actually Jim Lee, and Rob Williams. And then at the back, they recommend all these different books. And as people who love comics, and with the I guess hype that's coming in with movies, studios
Smart.
and publishers need to work more to do stuff like this because it may not be a lot, but it'll get someone to say, hey, I want to go pick up that book or check it out.
For sure. Super
Yeah.
smart.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that because, the interview aside, recently, DC has been doing good things. Get Joker came out this week. There was the King Shark, the digital first came out this week.
Yeah.
Peacemaker is going to have his own. He's featured in the Suicide Squad book. They're having a show come out. It's not a character we'd really seen in the DC universe until now, not recently. Yeah. So we've got Jordan Fugate, also known as Jordan Fugate. I wish we had more of a shared universe with DC, but I think we're past that point. Hopefully, we can just get quality movies. That's the biggest thing, right?
Yeah, I think this goes back to the point that Joe was making. And if you take a look at the HBO Max supplement area, right, like 2-minute to 5-minute segments, they have one specifically around James Gunn talking and the entire cast talking about him, about how this is his movie and he built everything practically and yada yada. So Joe made a point earlier to say, I think what they're trying to do is cater to that creative visionary, right? Yeah. To bring them in, not to make the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but to make a movie of X creator who happens to be handling the reins of this particular title, this particular IP. So I think that's really, really super smart.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about the characters we haven't seen in movies yet and what character from DC or Marvel we would like to see in movies. I have maintained I want to see an X-Men Murder World movie with Michael C. Hall starring as Arcade. Arcade is one of my favorite villains in all of comics. I think he'd be perfect for the character, and I would just love to see the X-Men in a Halloween timed, horror themed murder park with Arcade pulling the strings. Doc, I know you'd be down for it.
I honestly, I felt that they should have done that with the New Mutants movie. It would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Instead, they went with the Demon Bear story, which is kind of hard to really wrap your head around for the casual observer. Whereas a bunch of kids that are mutants all trapped in Murder World would have been perfect. But personally, I want an X-Men movie on Mojo World with Longshot, Dazzler, obviously Mojo, and the X-Babies, all of the crazy nonsense with the X-Men, all the totally batshit off the wall. And if I'm not gonna get that though, I want Strife, because then I'm gonna get another Cable movie and I'll be happy.
All right, Joe. What character you want to see from DC or Marvel that hasn't made it up there that you just know is going to be money when it finally happens?
There's a few. I would really love this is a little out of left field, but I'd really love to see Marvel do a Dakota North movie and really lean into that, security, supermodel, like that. She could be the John Wick kind of character for Marvel.
John Wick of supermodels.
You could do high fashion, high kicks. It's really not that
no one
hard.
kills her chihuahua.
There's your pitch, Joe.
Yeah,
right.
That's the tagline.
I think it would be. I think there's a lot you could do with that, and with DC, there are. I don't know. There's so many things with a lot of these different characters, but like I'd love to see a Wonder Woman movie with Dr. Cyber. Like that, like she should have been the villain for the second movie. It should have they should have leaned into like a James Bond kind of globe trotting. We have to stop Dr. Cyber's international network.
Cyber Sweeties. Nice.
Yeah, would have been way better than what they did. But people seem to forget that Wonder Woman has like a fairly decent rogues gallery, but everyone just goes like it's Cheetah and then maybe Ares, and then they're like, I guess we did all the Wonder Woman stories that ever happened. Sure. And while she has much better villains.
They're not entirely wrong, though.
I mean, that's why you're the Marvel aficionado. Come on,
but they're not entirely like. I mean, seriously, what other Wonder Woman for the casual reader? What other Wonder Woman villain even fucking exists?
Casual reader.
That's part of that problem is on DC.
Yeah,
they have not done a very good job at explaining that development. And then they keep rehashing a lot of the same stories and same characters over and over again. And it's like, that's on them. It's the same thing with Captain America. I distinctly remember after Winter Soldier, 2 movies in, people going, he fought the Red Skull and they did the Winter Soldier storyline. That's it. What other Captain America stories are there?
No, what I wanted is to see it turn into a Bloodstone, the Bloodstone saga, and then introduce Elsa Bloodstone.
Yeah,
I was reading Captain America around Serpent Society time. I'm like, that would be kind of cool to see that level of insanity, that level of craziness.
Absolutely, and they kind of then like backpedaled, with like Falcon and Winter Soldier, where they were like, "Oh yeah, there's all this other Captain America. Let's just cram some of that into this show really quickly." Sure. And it's like, come on, there's such a rich history for some of these characters. They just like, but
Jimmy, we know why he's not here. Apparently, he slept past his alarm. Well, hopefully, you'll be able to make it. And I already sent you the link. And Neostar, he's your Huckleberry, Doc. Silver Swan, Cersei, Hell, Medusa.
Yeah.
Silver Swan would be the one. That would be the one I would want to see.
Silver Swan would be good. Yeah,
that's a really good story arc, though, where she finally kind of saves her in the end.
Yeah, no, that would have been great.
Really, yeah. So Neostar knows what's up.
What do you call it? Is Rom still a Marvel property? Because I would love to see that freaking movie.
No,
that would be great.
Rom is currently at IDW, although his race is still with Marvel.
Oh, I didn't know what that thing was about reading it as a kid, but I'm like, look at that guy. That guy's freaking awesome. I'd love to see that.
Because the most recent Cable series had Rom's species in it.
Oh, interesting.
But no one cares about Crystar, right? So that's not even like
that doesn't count.
I think no one has the rights to Crystar, and no one's asking.
Oh, you know what we really need? US1. The truck driver.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And if I could have a rewind button, just one rewind button, I would like for them to redo all of Inhumans. Yes. Just not do that version that Saw. I know we're saying things have not seen light of day yet, but please just hit the rewind button on that entire franchise because those guys are freaking awesome.
That was the one time I saw Frank Miller and got to like talk to him was at that like Marvel premiere for Inhumans. That was so
ruined it
ridiculous.
Yeah, which honestly, if they had not signed that contract with IMAX, you probably would have never gotten anything Inhumans because without Feige did not want it at the time. That contract was there. They had to do something. It was a mess.
Yeah.
Kenneth Dowling's wish list. We're here to hit Kenneth first. I'm sorry, Josh.
No, you're good.
He wants to do Extinction Agenda storyline, Court of Owls, origin of the storyline, Hobgoblin, my favorite Spidey villain, and they better credit Roger Sturt. Absolutely. Court of Owls would be cool. I know we're seeing it in the video game, right, Josh?
Yes. There's
that new Arkham game that's coming up.
I think they've even got them in the one that's that all the sidekicks are doing. This
Yeah.
was to come out next year after. I can't remember. I'm not a gamer. I apologize, guys. So I don't keep up with that. But yes, the Court of Owls will be showing up in games. They've shown up in TV. It's only a matter of time before they show up in film. So
Absolutely.
but
That's the
I'll take it.
coolest Batman thing that's probably been created in like the last 15 years. So
Agreed.
absolutely. Thank you very much, Kenneth. All right, Josh, what character you want to see?
So there's a part of me that kind of falls in line with Eric, where I would like to see a more comics accurate Huntress and or Cassandra Cain, but that is not my pick. If I were to see any character, I would like to see a horror-based film with the Spectre. Like, I feel like you could make a kick-ass movie that way, or a series of movies.
Yep.
And then from a Marvel standpoint, hola!
Whoa.
Made it.
Right.
The comic
Let's
book
start
teddy
this
bears in the house.
show.
Yeah.
Start the show.
Let's go back to the beginning.
From a Marvel standpoint, I'm going to kind of go that X-Men slant. I would love to see the Shi'ar Empire. I think visually it'd be a lot of fun, but also we might get a freaking Phoenix story that is accurate.
They've tried it 2 times.
Twice.
now. I don't
And
know.
Is there business in a Blue Beetle Booster Gold buddy comedy superhero?
100%.
Yes, there is.
They're casting the dude from Cobra Kai to play Blue Beetle, right?
Oh, right on.
Yeah. Well, that's
So that's
what the
forthcoming.
rumor is.
I think it's going to be a show.
The
but-
teenager,
Uh-huh. 'Cause there's 2
to
Blue
play
Beetles.
Jamie Reyes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I was gonna.
All right,
I was
let's
gonna
run-
say. Wait. Is it gonna be Johnny Lawrence as Booster Gold? Because I would
That'd be
watch
better.
the shit out of that.
That'd be perfect. Let's run down what some of the viewers had to say. Then we'll let the comic book teddy bear himself, Jimmy, chime in. The end. Tommy Barkin says Malcolm McDowell from Clockwork Orange would have been a great arcade. That is correct. Atomic Bulldog wants to see Maverick. Right.
I could get behind Maverick. Well, no,
TV
we
wants
already
Spiders.
saw him. We already got him. Maverick was
Wolverine
Agent Zero in Wolverine Origins. Yep.
Yes, you're right. DV wants to see Spider Jerusalem from Transmetropolitan. Who else we got? We got Old School Comics wants Nightwing and Batgirl. We technically already saw him in Batman and Robin, right? Not Nightwing, I guess, but he was.
If it was in Batman and Robin, it does not count.
How dare you, sir? Also, yeah.
Jero says Booster Gold. Figure Jawing wants a Black Cat movie. That would probably do pretty well. Tevye wants the Super Sons. I'm shocked. Tevye, I never would have thought you'd want a Super Sons movie.
No.
What
Adam,
are
wow.
the Super Sons?
Getting
way.
real far out of his comfort zone there, is he, Tevye?
Dion wants Metal Men.
Gentlemen.
Who else
Yeah.
we got? Evil Black Cat wants a detective martial arts Nightwing in a Miami Vice style Hal Jordan Green Lantern, or Hal and John Green Lantern movie, or in Green Arrow. The Creeper.
All right.
Yeah.
Jeepers Creepers.
I can see it.
No.
Yeah.
Mark M wants May's Agency. There you go. LK says you could do a Bourne style movie with Silver Sable. Not bad. We
could.
also got the question.
Yes.
100.
We sort of already have the question because we have Rorschach. Isn't it the same? It's kind of the same character, right?
Yeah.
I'd rather the question.
If we get really blurry-eyed about it, and
Sorry, Joe. I didn't hear that. What was that again?
I just said I'd rather the question.
Oh, I meant the sound effect that you made.
Oh.
The Atomic Bulldog wants the Duffer Brothers to make X-Men. Yule Carter
What
wants
did
a
they
Bug
direct?
movie.
Who are the Duffer Brothers?
I know the
Why do I know that
name.
name?
they're
I
the, what
don't
do you
remember
call
why.
it? They're the oh gosh, the 80s relaunch Stranger Things guys.
Oh,
Yes, that's,
all right,
okay.
that's who they are.
All right. I
Bronze
can get
Age
behind
Pirate.
that.
NFL Super Pros the movie. Nice.
Well, that would have been the story right after Cap Wolf, where Cap becomes armored Captain America, and then they just call him NFL Super Pro
Yes.
because it was basically the same design.
We've got DC character be Hal Jordan in a rewind scenario Eric just described.
Yeah, they did.
The
that.
Howling
They
Commandos.
did that franchise
We already
dirty.
got the Howling Commandos once.
Yeah.
Why would you want
Captain
Jon
America.
Stewart?
He's the best.
Oh, you know what
heroes
they
for
could
hire.
do? Oh, you know what? Hold on. What they could do is the other Howling Commandos series that Marvel did in the early 2000s that was all monster characters. And they were literally howling, like Frankenstein's monster, werewolf, like basically all the Universal monsters as a strike force for S.H.I.E.L.D. I could get behind that one.
Brian
All right, I
Reagan
know-
is Booster Gold.
I know what I want. It took me a while.
We're not to you yet, buddy. I got something I got to handle first.
This
We got to
isn't
get
about-
about. I would like to do the original TMNT book by Eastman and Laird as a movie, and it's the origin of the Hobgoblin storyline. The original TMNT as a movie would be amazing, but it's so bloody.
Yeah.
Yeah, who would
They'd
you
have
market
to
that?
scale back the violence on that one. And what do you think,
That
Don?
would sell
Origin of the
itself.
Hobgoblin, Spider-Man?
I
But
could get behind. Well, it depends. Which Hobgoblin are they going to go with? Is it going to be? Because I don't think they can really do Ned Leeds with the current guy playing Ned Leeds.
That dude could get buffed up.
Yeah, maybe, but having like a bowling ball shaped villain is
I
What's
just
the
told you
blob?
he could get in shape if he's seen
Yeah,
what
yeah,
Ethan
I
Suplee
guess
looks
he could.
like.
yeah,
He's jacked.
but now he doesn't get any work in Hollywood,
Yeah,
which is kind of a
he was-
bummer.
He was typecast as an obese man. So,
Yeah.
there you go. Thank you very much,
How
Kenneth. Who
dare
else?
they.
Oh, Tevye also wants Icon and Rocket. He wants to buff the
Somebody
the Super Set.
somebody said Steel, but without Shaq. Well, we're already getting that in the Superman and Lois TV show.
I love that
Steel's
movie
in there.
Steel
growing
was
up.
great. All right, Jimmy. What character do you want to see from DC or Marvel that hasn't been in a movie yet?
Just the team in general I want to see is Warlock and the Infinity Watch. Because that was great storytelling. I feel from Jim Starlin. I feel like since we just got done with the Infinity Gauntlet, it would be a great opportunity to do that.
Didn't they introduce Warlock already in that Guardians of
No.
the Galaxy 2?
No, they
They-
hinted at him
Yeah.
for Guardians of the
Oh,
Galaxy
it was-
3.
Yeah, they hinted at it.
And we haven't seen Pip the Troll yet, so looking forward to that.
You know, just because you read Infinity War the other week, you don't have to just keep going back to the well on that.
Hold on. I think
Jimmy just wants
I have
a
the books.
movie of
I
Jimmy
know.
just wants a
you have
movie of whatever he just read this week.
No. I have Infinity War and I got these, but I haven't read these in a long time. This is really good.
They
What
just
is
happen
it?
to be sitting right next to your desk. If you haven't read them, yet?
Yes, because I was going to read them, but then I procrastinated and they sat there.
Neo Star Production says, I know it's unlikely, but I'd love to see a Dark Hawk movie. A teenage hero with alien armor taking on the mob, space aliens, and even some Spider-Man's foes. You can make one hell of a trilogy.
Yeah, anything that you feel is quote unquote unlikely from a Marvel movie, I would say expect them to make sometime in the near future. Whether
they're
it's
running
their
out?
own- yeah, because I mean, for the films, these actors have a shelf life that's way shorter than what we get in comic books, and Disney and Marvel are going to try to run this train as long as they can, and that's going to mean bringing in all these kind of like, lower level. I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but lower level characters that aren't as
No,
popular.
They had to start with the B list,
They have room to
and they're
grow.
they're on the C list right now. They're heading straight to D list real soon.
Gwenpool.
Yeah.
Gwenpool.
Well, we're going to get A list coming up because you got X-Men coming and you got
Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four. Yeah.
I think hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll do it better than they've been done.
All right, well, that was fun. We talked about the DC and Marvel characters we want to see. We need to get on to the next one. Speaking of Warner Brothers, it appears that the Justice League Snyder Cut was an anomaly. They're no longer listening to their fans. We've got the outcry regarding Amber Heard remaining as part of the cast of Aquaman 2 after Warner Brothers had fired her ex-husband Johnny Depp from his Fantastic Beast franchise after the details of the divorce. Very contentious stuff. Not a lot of fun things to be gleaned from that proceeding come out. People think it's hypocritical. We also have people calling for the Ayer Cut David Ayer himself has said he had a completed version of his Suicide Squad movie, and what the studio gave you was a hatchet job. I don't know. What do you think, Jimmy? Should Warner Brothers be ignoring their fans now, or they feels like they set a precedent?
Anytime anyone, doesn't matter what company you are or just a single person, if you ignore your fans, that's a bad idea because they can just end up costing you millions of dollars. And when he said like, "Oh, we don't really," when he said we don't really take fans consideration, fans what they want into consideration, I was like, you did that with the Snyder Cut, and also everyone else and it seems like in the Suicide Squad now is telling you to release Ayer Cut. So what's the big deal? And one of the actors actually came out with like a pretty good thing saying it's a win-win. You're gonna get money out of it either way. So like, what's why wouldn't you?
There's a reason, because Hollywood and media in general. I mean, we've seen this for 5 years. I know that there's a lot of people that have said it, but it's true. They are in a post-consumer world. They believe they are. It doesn't matter what the actual audience wants for things. They're going to give us what they want to give us, and we will eat it. This is the world we live in now. They stopped giving a shit about. Look, because if they actually were listening to fan reaction, to audience reaction, Batgirl never would have, or Batwoman never would have made it to season 2. The Flash would have been canceled years ago. Supergirl wouldn't have kept on going for years. And that's just the CW shows. Marvel wouldn't have basically said F you to their entire audience for the last 5 years and just said, we're giving you what we want, not what you want.
None of this is that a horrible thing?
They're giving us what they want, not what we want. That's
Ken
the problem.
KDI says Warner Brothers needed signups for HBO Max, and they got those from the Snyder Cut. They don't think they're going to get that with the Ayer Cut in quite the same numbers.
In fairness, they won't.
Do that.
Yeah,
they won't.
Yeah, they won't. I think that comment's a bit of an ish comment. Different time. I think HBO Max still could stand to perform better, and I think they're going to try to find ways to do that. I think box office wise, we're going back into a tricky period. You do have certain countries that are going back in lockdown. I don't think here in the States we'll have places going to lockdown, but you're definitely going to see certain states inflict stronger restrictions. And I think as you go into next year, you're going to see studios a little desperate to get some more income coming in. And Warner Brothers might be one of those, because they pretty much gave up their entire year of box office by releasing everything either just on HBO Max or conjointly. But, and the reason I say, I think 100% you will get an Ayer version of the Suicide Squad. I don't know which Ayer version you're going to get, because you had a version that was scripted and in the process of being made, where you had parademons and that were involved, and the story was completely different. And then you have a version that's essentially the film we got, but a completely different cut. I think you'll get that version because it's done. They had focus groups, people saw it, it was out there. It's part of where the feedback came. It was part of where you got the feedback that it needed to be a little bit lighter tone, and Warner Brothers was already on that train because of the reception to BVS. So I 100% think you will get that quote unquote second version that is his edit. We'll say not his film, but his edit.
We got Neostar Production says you could probably make a decent film with any of the 3 Blue Beetles if handled correctly. Probably get a trilogy out of all 3. Damn good point.
Yeah, there was something that the producer for Aquaman said that made me kind of eye roll, right? Which is, I don't think we're ever going to react to, honestly, pure fan pressure. You got to do what's best for the movie, right? And
he already did that.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And in regards to getting rid of Amber Heard, it's like because the fans are pressuring her to pressure them to basically, live up to what they did to Johnny Depp. And I go like, yeah, but you know that's not exactly true, right? You know it's not true that you're going to stand up for these things because fans are saying one specific thing. In this case, it made it easy. You made it easy for yourself. But fans already were clamoring for for Snyder Cut, and they did that. So I don't know how sort of two-faced that comment is. And when it serves your agenda, it makes total sense. But when it doesn't, you're like, oh yeah, because we don't cave.
Yeah, I'm just going to go back to they live in a post-consumer world. All of these companies, they are at the point of too big to fail. So they no longer give a fuck about what the market says. Warner Brothers will never fail. They could release 50 movies next year that not a single person steps into the theater, lose their entire value, and they'll get bailed out because no one will let Warner Brothers fail.
Somebody else will buy it, but then they'll completely change it.
Yeah, but no, my point is they'll just get bailed out. They won't even have to sell. Well, they'll just get bailed out. We're in that world now, and they don't care anymore.
There's already a little bit of an aspect in this kind of built in. Like when you do films, you have insurance for films. So studios have insurance on films that they pay into, that if a film doesn't perform, they actually, kind of get recouped some money. It's weird and crazy, but in a way that already exists. I think the next 2 to 3 years is going to be really interesting in the film industry because of streaming. I'm curious to see if we have budgets like we were used to seeing. I don't think we're necessarily ever, at least not in the immediate future, going to see box office numbers like we were used to seeing. Studios have an interesting frontier that's ahead of them that they have to figure out how they're going to release things, because I think you've made people used to and accustomed to having that option of streaming. But I think we're seeing that if you offer streaming right out the gate, you're gutting your numbers, and they even though they get 100% of the take from Premier Access, it's still not matching what they were making in movie theaters. So
because there's no urgency to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and look at, even if you look at Black Widow's box office numbers, you took away the one thing that usually helps Marvel movies excel, that return visit to the theater. They count on those return visits for their box office numbers. So that was a big part of it. And then for whatever reason, the movie never released in China, and that's your second biggest box office. So there's so many things into play that studios are going to have to just work through and try to manage and determine what's best for them. But it's the movie going experience is going to be completely different moving forward.
Yeah, no.
Get it. Salad says Fatal J did say there was a schism in Warner Brothers of pro Snyder and anti Snyder people. Either way, you got to honor the fans. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously something going on at Warner Brothers. They set a precedent, and then they're saying that they don't do it. So, what were you saying, Joe? I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, I was going to say that that stuff's true, but I got the chance to see the Suicide Squad in a movie theater, so that I think also helped with the experience. It was nice to be in a movie theater. There was only it was Thursday night, for a premiere movie like this, and what was it? There were 4 other people in the movie theater.
Yeesh.
That's perfect.
I mean,
go to matinees on Tuesdays.
In fairness, in fairness, there's a lot of people. Well, let's just say terrified still to leave their house.
Yeah.
Sure,
for
valid or otherwise reasons. It's so people are still just not going out.
No,
all right, Doc. This is directed towards you. There was a story where that young actor who plays Ned Leeds has lost 40 pounds. I think the MCU may do Hobgoblin. I hope so. I want Roderick Kingsley.
I do too. I don't see that dude playing Hobgoblin. Sorry, I just don't. I mean, it's
you probably wouldn't have seen that one guy playing the werewolf in Twilight, but then he got jacked up in Beefcake.
I mean, but and you're right, because you get Chris Pratt that was fat and lazy, and then he got all jacked as well.
No disrespect.
Now, granted, he's let himself lose a little bit, and they even joked about that in the second Guardians. Or was that Guardians, or was that?
It was Infinity War.
Okay, regardless, yeah, he lost he let himself get a little pudgy again, but not anywhere near where he was like when he was on Parks and Rec. So yeah, I guess.
Also, I heard he lost the weight for a different movie, not
Well,
anything.
what was it? Zero Dark 30? That he
Yeah,
was that it?
Ned Leeds guy was in Zero Dark.
No,
Thirty?
that was
No.
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt.
Oh, I was like, wow, he's so young.
Chris Pratt lost the weight for Moneyball and Zero Dark 30, and that was around the time he was getting cast as
I thought it was the dude that was Uncle Owen from Star Wars was in Zero Dark 30.
there was a couple of guys
Edgerton.
that were
Yeah.
They look the same.
As far as Chris Pratt goes, I know they've had like back behind the scenes footage of he was only going to get cast if he lost the weight, and they put him on a diet and they put him on a workout plan to see if he could even start doing it. And then as he started shedding weight, then they said yes, you can take it. So he might have been doing it with another movie, but that was dependent on him getting that role.
Telling you,
No,
Ned
I
Leeds
was
is gonna
talking
show
about
up
Ned-
in the movie.
yeah.
Oh,
completely
Ned.
diesel, and Doc's gonna eat it. Like I told you.
hey, prove me wrong. I mean, even the fat kid from Superbad got jacked for a little while.
Yeah.
Jonah
Jonah
Hill?
Hill?
Remember with the
Yeah,
what
Jonah
was it,
Hill.
I wouldn't say
yeah,
that jacked.
yeah.
He lost weight. I think if you look at this too in actors and what you do, I think there's even a bit of a difference between Chris Pratt and the actor that's playing Ned Leeds, because Chris started his career and was fit. Like if anyone remembers him from Everwood, he was very attractive, and then he gained weight. But he had an athletic background, and I don't know if this actor has an athletic background.
Sure.
I can't believe you'd say that about that guy. I don't know what his name is, but I feel bad
Look,
for him.
I am
You've
the asshole of the
disrespected me as a
panel.
fan.
It happens.
All right, we got to head on. I know we're holding up Eric from the baby, so we got a couple more things here. We got the Spider-Man 60th anniversary. It's going to be called Beyond Spider-Man. It's coming out. They're going to be celebrating the 60th anniversary of Spider-Man for an entire year, Doc. Good stuff here, right? You know, what could go wrong pulling 6 writers onto one book?
Oh, holy crap! It's 6
everything?
writers in one. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry.
Eric, go.
So much fun. Holy crap. That is so poor.
Yes, it's who is it? It's Thompson, Zeb Wells,
Salad
Saladin
Man.
Ahmed, Cody Ziegler.
Oh,
Maybe it's fine.
Saladin Ahmed.
Who's the editor of that line?
Should be Nick Lowe.
Yeah, it's Nick Lowe.
Are they capable?
I don't know. The last time I saw something like this, we got Age of X-Men, which is one of the worst reading experiences in the history of comic books.
Nick Lowe managed Dan Slott for a decade and didn't fire him. So no.
No, he didn't. He was the X-Men group editor.
I
He
know.
switched
I'm
places.
joking.
Also, Saladin Ahmed is writing the most bland Miles Morales book compared to Bendis. Like that book, like you read like the first 10 issues, you would literally leave there going, that was a waste of everyone's time, and you should apologize.
Is there an excitement for this? I mean, outside of it being 60, these specific writers, this specific line, is there fan excitement for this thing coming up?
Honestly,
Well,
I
it's
think
because
most of them.
Nick Spencer left. He was supposed to go out.
Right.
He's
Right.
leaving early, so they brought these guys in, and now we're going to get Ben Reilly as Spider-Man, just so they can bring Peter Parker back as Spider-Man and Spider-Man #1 again. So they
I
can
see.
charge you. So issue 99 will be issue, I think 900. So
Yeah.
that'll be $15. Issue 100 will be a milestone, so that'll be $15. And then you reboot it issue 1, and you get another $15 comic book in 1 month.
This is supposed to be an event in which people should get excited because it's number 60 and but like our level of cynicism, like we're already planning on, oh, this is why they're doing it, and these are the
numbers.
steps that they're taking, and it's like, oh
Yeah.
man, that really sucks, because it should be about the number 60, right? It should be a big deal because it's a good book, but instead you can tell that they're planning it around a relaunch of a #1, and that sucks.
Yeah, Kenneth Dowling, yes, it's Kelly Thompson, Saudi Ahmed, Cody Ziegler, Patrick Gleason, Zeb Wells. Is there one more, Doc?
Did you say
I think
Salad
that's
Man?
it. Saudi Ahmed, yeah, I believe.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's a big team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's
Like,
it's too many fucking cooks in the kitchen, and most of them are very, very, very untalented. Half of them will leave you with food poisoning. One of them's a pretty good sous chef, and none of them are actual cooks.
Whatever, Zeb
so-
Wells is fine. He'll be good.
Yeah,
Patrick
he's-
Gleason's
Gleason's
great on
pretty good
Superman.
too.
I've never read anything Patrick Gleason's written. I like his art, but I've
Yeah.
never read anything he's written, so I can't comment on that.
I can recommend about 50 issues of Superman.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but okay. Even then, though, he wasn't really the writer. He
was, like,
contributed to stories, but
co-plotting.
he wasn't the writer.
Okay, so
the
he
only-
has some of his own like issues he's done, but he was always a co-writer with Tomasi.
Yes, and what I will say is that's because Tomasi is very gracious and is willing to respect the artists when they help kind of drive the stories, for them. But as far as a writer, he did not do much writing for Superman. Now, he did write a Robin miniseries, and it was okay. Like he's a decent storyteller. He's not a good writer. So that's where it falls
I
into.
never.
So that's where they fell
Oh.
apart. Respecting artists. That's a mistake,
Oh.
man. Don't.
I mean the regular team after the anniversary.
No announcement.
We do
yet
not know
on
who
that.
they have in mind to be the Spider-Man writer. I've
This
heard a
is-
few names. Zeb
I
Wells
have-
was in there. Ben
I have
Percy
a
was in there, but there's nothing else. What's
I
up,
have a
Doc?
suspicion that this is going to end up a lot like Brand New Day. Whenever they did post One More Day, when Spider-Man went, it had a rotating set of writers. There was about 5 writers involved on it then as well. And it was shipping 3 times a month. And basically you had Dan Slott, you had Christos Gage, you had Paul Jenkins, you had Wade, you had a couple other
It's a better team.
yes, everyone involved except for Dan Slott was better and more talented. Even Wade was, and that's a guy who I have absolutely no respect for, both as a person and a writer. Even he is more talented than everyone except for maybe Zeb Wells in this current group. The group 15 years ago, whenever they did this, was infinitely more talented than the group that they have run to do this now. But like they did with Brand New Day, they basically let it go for a while, and then they'd lose one writer, and then they'd lose another, and then the one guy who can't get a better gig is going to be the one that ends up as the permanent writer. I'm not joking, because that's how you got Dan Slott as the permanent writer on Spider-Man, because he was the only guy that couldn't get a better fucking gig somewhere else.
All right.
And that's why
we
I was
don't know
asking
that's what they're
about
going
who's
for.
running the editing work, right? Because if you have a pretty decent person in that space, you can kind of guide them into conceptually into an overall vision of where this is supposed to, a concept of what successful looks like, right? But I don't know if they do.
I have.
Blade Kramer says, by the time this era of Spider-Man is done with the new #1, will we have some Spider-Man toilet bowl variant edition covers? Of course. Spidey on the toilet. It'll be beautiful. There's going to be a lot of variant covers. You got a 60th anniversary Spider-Man launching a new #1 with the return of Peter Parker after he's been on the sidelines for about 24 issues. It will absolutely, probably have 80 variant covers. So thank you very much, Slade. I don't know, Joe. Should I be this cynical? Is this what's going to happen?
Like in general?
I really love Spider-Man, and Marvel has done everything in their power for the past few decades, I feel like, to come up with ways to make me not like Spider-Man or not want to read Spider-Man. And it's a shame, because Spider-Man's a really simple story that they've gone out of their way to make nearly as convoluted as the X-Men. And it shouldn't be. It should be a really simple story about a guy that's trying to do the right thing and juggle being a superhero in his personal life. And
He shouldn't become a billionaire and then have his mind stolen by Doc Ock.
That didn't happen.
Yes, it did.
It's just
I gotta go.
Parker Industries.
I gotta go.
Later, buddy.
Bye, Eric.
It's just a nightmare. You just want to, even some of the stuff that's good right now, because there's plenty of stuff like reading Spencer's run. It's not that it's bad, but even the good stuff, you're just like, all this backstory and insanity. You're just like, why can't this be a simple story? It's Spider-Man. You couldn't get someone into it today. Like if someone was like, oh, I really like, Tom Holland or I like the Tobey Maguire movies. Like, how do I get into Spider-Man? And you're like, well, do you have about 4 days for me to explain what's been going on? And, it's like,
6 months to do nothing but read issues of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
There's
all right, so we do need to say goodbye to Eric. He was not joking. I knew this could happen.
Yeah,
I know he's got a little baby at home. Eric, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys.
Yes,
you
thank
guys
you
are
very
awesome.
much. This is great.
September 15th, not August 15th. I was way off.
Yes, don't give me a heart attack there, Wes. Jeez Louise. Man. Gentlemen, thank you for having me. Have a great weekend.
Always
yes,
a pleasure,
no, this
Eric.
was wonderful.
Absolutely.
It's been fun.
We'll speak with you
so
later.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So Kenneth says, I want to say I agree with Jimmy. Don't agree with Jimmy. That's your first problem.
It happens.
That's always a
lot.
bad road to go down. I would agree with Jimmy on Miles Morales Spider-Man. That book is useless. They just have to fill quotas with no innovation. It's just sitting there. Obviously they're in the Clone Saga. I think they might have just finished it up. There you go.
The art's good. Don't get me wrong. It's just the writing is like bland as hell.
All right, Doc. What would you say if Jason Aaron does ASM?
I'd say that I am actually going to finally drop ASM.
He's doing Punisher Max, right?
I know, and I'm not reading it. Look, because here's the thing. Jason Aaron is kind of like a lot of other writers that Marvel currently, like Tom King, where he only has one tool in his toolbox and he uses it repeatedly.
Blasphemy.
And that is to fundamentally break all of the characters he touches. He does. He breaks their foundation, and then everyone else has to somehow pick up the pace or pick up the pieces and use that character in the future. He broke Wolverine permanently. He broke Thor permanently. He's breaking.
All right, Doc. All right. Well, you talk about it enough. He was just joking with you. Is Yul Carter taking the chap out of you here, Joe? Why can't it be a simple story like Backstar?
Backstar is a simple story available now.
There you go.
I was really hoping you would be like
coming up.
Simple.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yul Carter. Does anyone else have anything to say about Spider-Man's 60th anniversary, just as far as something they would like to see or whatever? Okay, Shimmy.
I hope we get good reprints.
I've been trying to say this for like 10 minutes.
We're going to have to move on to the next topic. I'm sorry.
There's one good thing coming out of this. Ben Reilly is coming back. I like him. He's actually my favorite Spider-Man. So anytime he comes back is kind of a good thing to me. That's really all I can say that's good about this.
My goodness. They have to kill Peter Parker after he gets married again. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Scarlet Spider. He's his own hero. I'm just saying.
Peter David did the Scarlet Spider book in 2016, and that's really good. And that made me like him more than Peter Parker.
Peter David's awesome. Everything he does is good. All right, let's get to this last topic here. We did get a Suicide Squad book. Get Joker. There was a lot of people were up in arms because we saw Wild Dog was going to be a part of the January 6th Capitol riot thing that happened, and they included that in there. There's a little bit of more politics and stuff in here, Joe. I found this comic book to be virtually unreadable, not because of any of that stuff, but just because of the pacing, the fact that the characterization was all over the place, and then there's censoring in half the book and not censoring in the other half, and it felt like they censored out the word piss. I couldn't believe it.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't figure that out.
Weird. Yeah, yeah, I know. I wasn't thrilled with it. Brian Azzarello is someone who he's a weird hit or miss, I think, for a lot of people, because some of the stuff he does, it's really good. It's like, whoa, this is amazing. And then when he misses the mark, it's like not even in the same like country, and it's weird. But yeah, this unfortunately I think falls into that like latter category. I don't know why this book exists. I don't know what they're trying to tell with this story, because it's like, Jason Todd might want to get back at Joker for murdering him. Now that's breaking new ground. DC has never, ever tried to cover the idea that Jason Todd is going through some shit and doesn't like the Joker. So I'm glad that someone's finally doing that.
Breaking new ground. Josh, what do you think? I just was not impressed with this.
Hit or miss. I'm going to touch on the censorship thing for a second. Why are we having YA books openly say the word fuck, and then in an adult book we're censoring it?
Yes.
It makes no sense. Anyways, that's my rant.
Clown world. We live in clown world.
Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what your goal is? So I have a little bit of a different opinion on the book. Overall, I did not like it.
Sure.
I liked the first probably third of it. I liked what they did with Jason. I kind of liked what they did with Amanda Waller. For me, DC's always kind of been on this back and forth of, we're making Jason the bad guy. He's like the badass of the Batman group. He kills people, but no, we can't. He's a hero. We can't let him kill people, but we're going to have Batman say he can't kill people and, not in my city. And then we're going to let him do something. And then Batman's going to come around again and say, not in my city.
It's going to look like Jason Todd killed somebody. So Batman's going to try and stop him, but he didn't really do it.
Yeah.
I'm like first.
So sick of that. So for me, I like the idea of Jason being in prison. I like the idea of Amanda Waller scooping him up and using him as part of the squad. For me, I mean, I think you could find some comparisons because he's in prison.
No, I got you.
But I do think for me, it's a take that makes sense. And I was on board. And then once we started getting introduced to the rest of the squad, I just Azzarello went so far Azzarello of trying to be edgy, trying to be dark, trying to be like, oh, here's this. And I just, this
Luke Cage's Pebbles.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I lost interest real quick. So
I liked the beginning of the story, and then after that it wasn't that good. But I do have to say two things. One, Alex Maleev never fails, so everything you see with him is always going to be beautiful. And two, the end of the book when we see Joker. Did anyone else notice the homage to Clockwork Orange by Stanley Kubrick?
Yes. Yeah. Everyone noticed it. He was singing Blame It on the Rain from a Milli Vanilli instead of singing in the rain. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you probably can't. It's probably copyright issues. But either than that, I found that part to be amazing.
I don't think it was as good as the Milli Vanilli reference in the Super Mario Brothers 3 cartoon, but
Mic drop. Boom.
How do we mute Joe?
I think I'm the only one with the muting powers. But yeah, I mean that was clearly an homage to Clockwork Orange when I can't remember the name of the street gang. They roll that family up.
Yeah, so. but no, Jimmy. The Alex Maleev art's it's solid. I kind of wish he got to do something a little more exciting. That there was a lot of exposition pages of people sitting around and talking.
This is this single issue does not show his skill as an artist, but even then it's 99%. Well, for me, it's 99% better than half of everyone else in the industry.
Yeah, but
We've also got
yeah.
that Neostar here says so many people want to deconstruct superheroes, but they rarely ever try to build them back up. It's always someone else's job to restore the hero. There's too much deconstruction. I will guarantee you that. What do you think,
That's
Joe?
fair.
Are we coming out of the deconstruction era?
I wish it'd be nice, but no, we're still everything's really dark and I don't know. There's this. It's almost like difficult to fully describe, but we're in this weird nebulous place where everything is just feeling like it's the same, and it's like the same. Like there's the gritty, deconstructed hero next to like some 20-something screaming, taking selfies, and I want it all to end.
Yes.
It's just, what is happening anymore?
So I will say this. I follow a musician on Instagram.
Wow.
And what surprising. He posted something on there that is, it was like profound to me because I never thought of it before until then. He said, deconstruction without reconstruction is destruction. And that's what we have right now going on. It's just a bunch of destruction.
Because that's because
built back up.
Well, that's because anyone can break shit. It takes talent to build things. We have an industry that's lacking significantly in talent. Sorry.
No, it's
Hate
true.
to break it to you.
I agree.
I mean, I walked in and did all the demo in my bathroom, and I can build some things, but I'm not going to rebuild my bathroom. I'm hiring a professional to do that. And I'm just some fucking schmuck with a hammer. Everybody that has a hammer can break shit. But it takes skill to build things.
But
Jimmy follows a musician on Instagram. I do want to say, King at KDI says, I blame Bixie, Matthew, and Mike Cotton for the censorship issues. Yeah, Mike Cotton, I know, was the editor. I'm assuming Bixie Matthew was the assistant editor. And Lade Kramer, Wes, hire Venditti to write a miniseries of Adam Strange so he can reconstruct Adam Strange after Strange Adventures so he can be a hero again. I don't know. And Venditti would be up for it, but I ain't got that kind of money. But I would love to do it after what we got last week. It's so bad. My goodness.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel like we've been stuck in this specific kind of rut. It feels like we're still stuck in like some New 52 era stuff that's just still continuing.
So
it's weird.
With Azzarello in particular, he seems to very much be stuck in that, because even when they did his Birds of Prey special, he pulled like so much crap from New 52, like Team 7. He went back to the Birds of Prey storylines from New 52, and I got that same feeling here. The one thing I will say about the book, because there's only 2 issues left, is I am interested to see what happens. This is a spoiler, so if you don't want to know how the book ends, hit mute. I'm curious to see what happens with Joker running the Suicide Squad. That could be a fun take. But Azzarello is going to have to like stop being Azzarello and focus on just trying to tell a good story as opposed to how edgy can I be.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, does anyone else have to say anything about Jimmy following a musician on Instagram?
I don't even want to know what musician it is because it's probably just going to annoy me.
No, his
right.
name is.
Anyone have anything else to say about Suicide Squad?
Brittany. Come on, we all know it was Brittany.
No, it was the lead musician of like a Christian band who's no longer like a Christian.
And now I'm annoyed. Why did you? Why did you say anything?
John Steingard, I think his name is.
Great.
I have no idea who any of these people are.
Get It Dowling says, Wes, I saw your video on John Byrne with Breen. Byrne was a great storyteller. What sticks out to me from him is his Man of Steel mini. I'm not a huge Supes fan, but that's one of the great Superman stories of all time. Absolutely. That was fantastic, Aaron Superman. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Expect to see more of that with Breen and I. Unfortunately, it won't be this week because he's got something he's doing, so we aren't going to be able to record it. But we definitely want to dive more into some of those creators and talk about what they did with their careers. I'm glad you enjoyed that.
Funny story with John Byrne. He created Silver Banshee, who was in the Suicide Squad Cat Joker.
And he's also a musician on Instagram. If you follow him, he gives wonderful tips on writing.
Let's go to
I'm
the chat.
just teasing you, Jimmy. I follow some musicians as well. So, anyone else have anything about Suicide Squad?
Stop following people. It's creepy.
Oh man. Nope, I think we're done. Let's do comic book recommendations. We've come to the end of the show. I can't believe we got here. I'm sorry, Joe.
I'm so lost.
It's all right.
What do you recommend this week, Joe? Besides Free Comic Book Day next week. Make sure you go for that.
It's Free Comic Book Day next week. I'm finally really all in on Geiger. Issue 4 really was like what hooked me in, and I think so that's been good.
I need to hit that one because I've been like Geiger's okay. The art's great, but the story it hasn't got me yet.
Issue 4 was the one where I was like, okay, got it.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, so I'd recommend that. Despite everything we just said about Spider-Man Sinister War 2, it's like I'm interested to see where it goes. It didn't come out. I don't think it came out this week, but the Marvel Alien stuff, I have been enjoying. It's been picking up, and there's been more intrigue lately.
Oh, I got you.
So I've been enjoying that as well. So
yeah, that's all over me for liking that comic, Joe. But I like all Alien comics. I just like the franchise. So even if it's bad, I like it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I am all about giant monsters ripping people apart. That sounds great. But yeah, so I do that, and I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, nothing really too much that came out. I'm still reading, stuff like Silver Coin, Good Asian, Haha. I think just wrapped last week. And stuff like that. But yeah, there's good stuff out there. Check it out. And thank you.
Says, you guys in Perch are the best on YouTube. He's obviously referring to Jimmy. If you have not gone to Comic Quirks with Jimmy, you are out of your minds. Great, wonderful interviews. He's also got some game shows and whatnot. So wonderful channel. Definitely give Jimmy a gander. There's a link in the video description. If you can't find it on your own, you can go find it that way.
My content's been very weird lately.
It really has.
I just told you don't want to not sell you. All right, buddy.
Oh man,
his content is great even when it's weird. Don't let him freak you out. Jimmy's a great guy. Josh, what do you recommend? You go on DC? You recommend any Marvel? What do you recommend?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go a little bit of a different route. I'm behind on this week's floppy releases because I've been in a Suicide Squad black hole. But I will say, if you saw the film and you want to read some good books, pick up some trades. You've got Suicide Squad Trial by Fire. It's Ostrander. They just released a new version of it. It's going to be easy to get. You've got Suicide Squad, the Janus Directive, also by Ostrander. And then if you want to go with something a little more current, you've got Volume 4 from the New 52, which is Discipline and Punishment by Alex Cott. But, if you like the film, if you want to kind of transition from film to books, go check those 3 out. That's a good starting point.
My cousin was very disappointed recently because he was reading the Tom Taylor Suicide Squad, and when that ended, he had like very little books he was reading. So I hear it's a good series as well.
Yes, the Tom Taylor Suicide Squad is honestly really, really good. The ending is rushed, but I do not fault Taylor for that. They kind of had to wrap things up and end it to go this new direction. But yes, it started off excellent, remained excellent, and then just was, how fast can you end this long form story?
Yeah.
I come on here and get bullied, everyone, just so you guys know.
I'm not bullied. I'm just teasing. Jimmy's cousin was disappointed recently. You're breaking news.
Letting everyone know. Wrap it up. Roll the credits.
Jimmy's comments are like that Simpsons. His comments are like the Simpson memes, like old man sees cloud.
I got 3 books on me. One is the best event of all time, Infinity War. And the other one, this is not your time. Sorry, okay. And the other one is in Warlock and the Infinity Watch. And of course, I recently started reading Reckless by Ed Brubaker and
Nice.
Sean
They just
Phillips.
announced the 4th volume.
There's 3?
There's 3 Reckless stories. They just announced the 4th one.
I knew there was 2. I didn't know there was a 3rd one.
Yeah, it just came out.
I should have really thought about. I should have really thought about my endeavors on reading a ongoing graphic novel. My bad. I had no idea. I only knew there was 2.
My bad.
3
Well,
just
you got
came out.
more fun. Yeah. 3
Awesome.
just came out earlier this year. Yeah.
And 4
Is that
just got
those are the
announced.
recommendations?
Yeah, those are my recommendations. And because I can't recommend Oblivion Song anymore because it's like
Yeah.
ending, and there's like, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna go back like 40 issues prior.
That's
You
what
could do
trade
that.
paperbacks
Hey, Jimmy,
are
I want to
for.
say thank you for showing up. I know it's hard for you to wake up in on the West Coast. It's like 7 a.m. So
Dude,
I'm glad
I
you
fell
were able
asleep
to make
at
it
like
on here.
4:30 a.m. because I'm trying to like figure out this like soundboard thing I'm doing today. So that's why I slept past the alarm because it's just rough. It's fun. I'm happy to be here though.
I understand. Now, the life of a YouTuber is not always pleasant. I'm trying to experiment and learn new tricks.
Yeah.
All right,
I mean,
Doc, what are you recommending? You recommend any X-Men comics?
No.
Don't you say Hellions.
I-
Don't you
I-
dare
I-
say Hellions.
I can't recommend Hellions yet because I haven't read it yet. So because I just got my comics when my roommate picked them up for me because I was out of town all week, so I didn't have a chance to do anything, and then I didn't have a chance to read it. I only read 2 comics this week. I read Geiger and I read X-Men #2.
X-Men.
And I really can't recommend X-Men. It's not good enough for me to recommend. It's
Is,
typical generic. It's typical generic Duggan fare. It's not terrible, but it's also not recommendable.
It's really surprising though, because like Duggan normally starts off strong for like the first 2 issues and then drops off like a rock.
I guess he's boring as hell to me, no matter what issue it is.
All right, Doc, what can you recommend?
But I also recommend going back and buying back issues. I just bought some ASM from the mid 80s while I was out of town, and it was worthwhile. And I recommend otherwise not buying anything written by Jerry Duggan or Jason Aaron or Tom King.
My
There's a
goodness,
lot of good
Doc.
Aaron,
That's the
though.
anti-recommendation. We got Kenneth Dalian here. He says, I recommend back issues of Amazing Spider-Man 241 through 244. Roger Stern, John Romita Jr. I bought these these a week ago. Great stuff. Great show today. Take care, fellas. Thank you very much, Kenneth. I'm glad you enjoyed this. We've also got Infamy or Death. I think he's a fellow. Obviously, I'm American, but I'm of Irish descent, if you can't believe that one. I think he's also in Ireland. And he says, I recommend everyone read Berserk. It's absolutely brilliant. And then read Backstar. Great story, Joe. I'm loving it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Is that the typical feedback you're getting, or are you getting other people who be like, Joe, you could step it up on Backstar? We'd really appreciate it.
I haven't gotten that, but that might just be because those people haven't read it. So
Okay,
Joe.
real
that's
quick.
what it is.
Joe,
All right,
Joe,
give him
my
that feedback.
One thing.
My
One thing,
feedback
Joe.
was, what a hack. But
Exactly.
it's fun.
So from what I'm hearing, like, because I've read them, I liked it. No. I have them. I read it.
No,
So,
it's fun.
This is going great. From what I hear from other people who've read it, and like their feedback is like it's not the best art. Like I really like the art. So can
I
we,
do like the art a lot. Yeah.
The art is an acquired taste. It's not a house style art, Joe. So
Yeah.
some people are going to be taken aback by it, and some people are going to be drawn in by it. Obviously,
Absolutely.
Jimmy's on the
That's-
second. Yeah,
And that's fine. I mean, there's a lot of artists I love that I know are very divisive with people. Like I'm a big like Mike Allred fan, and I know plenty of people who can't stand his stuff. So
yeah. If you
He's
want to get
doing a
kicked off the
Superman
channel,
book
say you
with-
like Tom Rainey. God.
if you guys want to hear a scoop,
I like Tom Rainey.
Mike Allred is doing a Superman book with Mark Russell. So
Doc, put it on your poll.
Oh,
Is
that
that a
sounds.
scoop or is that an
Mark
obituary,
Russell.
man? What are you doing
Yeah,
to
like that.
Superman?
Mark Russell and
Jeez.
Mike Allred. Jesus Christ, this is like
Did you read
And
Fantastic
Superman.
Four
It's
live
all your
story?
favorite
He's
things.
got
it
Namor
is. It's-
like in Sue
Dude.
Storm.
I don't want to talk about that book because I had such high hopes for it, and I literally almost ripped the copy I own because I was just like, he changed the history. He changed. Oh, so now, so now, the Thing and Mr. Fantastic aren't friends. They're just random people they met. Oh, I was so mad.
Yeah, that's just there. You go. Thank you very much, Infamy or Death. That went down a strange path.
Yes, thank you.
What were we talking about?
I'm going to jump in.
I'm about to do my
Metatron,
recommendations.
I was going to say Metatron's Cube did ask Joe, where can we get Beckstar?
If you can't get it at your local comic shop, even though they should be able to order it, you can go right to Mad Cave Studios website and order it directly through them. So you can get it digitally at Comixology as well, but you can order physical copies directly from the publisher. So.
Absolutely.
What?
Great question, Metatron's Cube.
Yes,
Really
thank
appreciate
you.
that. And looks like we are all caught up. My recommendations this week are Hellions 14. It's one of the 2 or 3 best comics of all at Marvel. It's definitely the most fun, in my opinion. I love that series. Obviously, Sinister War. Stillwater. That Chip Zdarsky.
That's
the
still
indie book.
going?
Yeah, we're on issue 9 this week. It's really cool. I mean, it's not the most like original thing I've ever read in my life, but I quite enjoy it. I think it's really good. I think that's it, fellas. Anyone else have any alibis before we head out of here? Doc,
Nope.
shut your dirty mouth.
Okay. I love you. Oh, you know what? One more thing. If you didn't already, go to the Arc Athena website on Eric Canete's on Eric Canete's site and sign up for the damn newsletter.
Absolutely. Be live on September 15th, not August 15th. I made that mistake. But there is a link to Eric Canete's website in the video description. There's a link to Joe's. But there's only a link to your Twitter, Joe. I'm sorry. You don't
That's
have your
fine.
own page.
Okay.
But there is a link to who is it? Who we got here? Jimmy's YouTube channel, and there's a link to Josh's new website. It's Pop by Comics, or it's Pop by Culture now.
Pop by Culture. It's always been Pop by Culture. So it's meant to kind of help bridge the divide of people who go see movies and hopefully influence them to pick up some books.
Absolutely. There is a link there. And thank you all very much. We'll be back next week for the Comics Aficionados. All have fun reading comic books. Doc, it's your time to shine.
And wash your ass.